Just started the job, and the company is full of ex-girlfriends. If you run into your ex-girlfriend at work, what should you do? Shen Huai, calm and collected, set aside any past grudges and smile. But what if the other coworkers are also your ex-girlfriends? Shen Huai, breaking into a sweat, then I'm done for. Chapter 1. Guys, I think I've landed a job. Jiangcheng. Jianghai University of Technology, dorm room 803. The moment Shen Huai spoke, the intense sounds of keyboards clicking instantly stopped, and everyone's gaze turned toward him. What? You found a job? His roommate Zhang Yi asked in surprise. What job? Zhao Xingyao took off his headphones. Which company? Li Depang leaned in, his face full of curiosity. Shen Huai slowly uttered a few words, Xingyao Media. The atmosphere in the dorm froze. The game in their hands suddenly lost all appeal. They had agreed to take it easy after graduation, but here he was, secretly hustling. And not just any company. Xingyao? Xingyao Media was one of the top entertainment companies in the country. For marketing majors like them, it was the kind of place they daydream of getting into, even if it meant paying for the privilege. Whoa! Xingyao? Did your ancestors tomb emit smoke or something? Zhang Yi was so envious his eyes nearly turned purple. I heard that a top media company like Xingyao never hires students from schools like ours. Shen Huai shrugged. Maybe it's because I failed in love but succeeded in my career? Failed in love, my foot. Li Depang scoffed. You've had more ex-girlfriends than the three of us combined have had female acquaintances. Failed in love? But I did get dumped. And it was a one-sided notification. Shen Huai smiled wryly, his mind drifting back to a week ago. When the campus belle, Li Shenran, called him to break up, he was out apartment hunting. With graduation from their senior year approaching, everyone would soon go their separate ways. Securing a place as soon as possible seemed wise. Li Shenran liked spacious rooms with balconies and hated west-facing apartments. So, after checking out several places, none felt quite right. Either they were too dimly lit or too expensive. Just as Shen Huai was about to head to the next apartment with the real estate agent, Li Shenran called. Hello, Shen Huai, are you able to talk? Her tone was subdued, giving Shen Huai a bad feeling. What's wrong, Shenran? Sure, I can talk. Go ahead. He signaled to the agent to wait a moment and walked quietly to a corner. Li Shenran took a deep breath before slowly speaking. Shen Huai, let us break up. Break up? Why? Shen Huai clenched his phone. Did I do something that made you unhappy? No, nothing like that. You're great. Li Shenran bit her lip, hesitated, and then got straight to the point. I was scouted and signed with a talent agency. They promised me resources to make me a star. With a hint of pleading in her tone, she continued, Shen Huai, I don't want to be just an ordinary office worker, wasting my life 9 to 5 every day. I want fame. I want to live in a big mansion. Those are things you can't give me. So, Shen Huai, I can't give up this chance. Do you understand? Shen Huai laughed. Wasn't he stupid? Of course, he understood. Wasn't he this just the classic move of cutting ties with a lover as soon as you make it big? So, you're breaking up with me to avoid people knowing you've been in a relationship, right? Shen Huai sneered. Li Shenran sounded guilty. The contract says I have to remain single, so. I'm sorry, Shen Huai, we can't be together anymore. Fine. Shen Huai gripped his phone tightly, his expression darkening. You agree? Li Shenran breathed a huge sigh of relief. I knew you were a good guy. He didn't need to hear that. It only made him angrier. This is your decision, and I respect it, he said coldly. I wish you a bright future in stardom. Let us delete each other. With that, Shen Huai hung up. He stared at their couple's profile picture on WeChat, his eyes darkening. Block. Delete. Change profile picture. All in one swift move. Shen Huai was no stranger to relationships. He'd long since learned to move in and out of them easily. He didn't like dragging things out or playing hard to get. Once a breakup was final, it was truly over, clean, absolute, no looking back. Everyone at school thought he and Li Shenran were a perfect match. Shen Huai, dashing and charming, and Li Shenran, graceful and alluring. Together, they were the most eye-catching couple on campus. But since Li Shenran had made her choice, Shen Huai had no reason to refuse. After erasing everything related to Li Shenran from his phone, Shen Huai finally approached the real estate agent with an apologetic smile. "Sorry, I don't think I need a rental for now." Shen Huai snapped back to reality. He faced 3 pairs of scrutinizing eyes. "Li Depang, come clean, how do you get in? Zhang Yi, what position? Zhao Xinqian, what the salary?" Shen Huai helplessly rubbed his temple. Xingyao PR department. 12,000 during probation, 15,000 after confirmation. 6 insurances and 2 funds, weekends off, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., 3 free meals a day, 13th month salary. Holy crap, that's enough, stop. Zhang Yi nearly yanked his hair out. "You're a fresh graduate, and they are offering you 15,000. The other 2 were equally shocked, their jaws nearly hitting the floor. "Shen Huai, no, Shen bro, how the hell did you manage that? How did you even send in your resume? I didn't see any recruitment link on Xingyao's website." Shen Huai scratched his head and sighed. "Well, I guess it's just pure luck. I didn't send in my resume. Xingyao contacted me first. Then they set up an online interview, and after it was over, they just sent me the offer." Shen Huai said it so casually, as if getting an offer from Xingyao was as easy as eating and drinking. It was enough to make someone want to pull their hair out in frustration. The 3 roommates exchanged glances, their expressions like they'd just eaten something terrible. They feared their buddy would be stuck in a miserable situation, but now he was driving a Land Rover. Double whammy. What kind of questions did the interviewer ask? "Enlighten me, maybe I can learn something," Zhang Yi asked. Hearing about interview experiences at such a big company couldn't hurt. Shen Huai thought for a moment, looking a little awkward. "Well, I'm afraid this might not be much help to you guys." "Why?" they asked in unison. "Because the interview only asked about my ex-girlfriends." At this, all 3 fell silent. Well, now there was nothing to discuss. Shen Huai couldn't help but chuckle at their defeated expressions. Although he was joking around, in reality, even he was surprised to get the Xingyao offer. The questions the interviewer asked him still lingered in his mind. What would you do if you ran into your ex at the company? What if other colleagues are also your ex-girlfriends? What if their whole company is filled with your ex-girlfriends? What then? Ex-girlfriends. Ex-girlfriends. And more ex-girlfriends. Shen Huai still didn't understand why Xingyao's HR had such an obsession with the term ex-girlfriend. They didn't ask about his professional skills or knowledge at all. Instead, they just kept asking about ex-girlfriends. By the end, Shen Huai's palms were sweating, his whole body drenched in sweat. He just gave up and answered randomly. He thought for sure he had blown it. But to his surprise, less than 5 minutes after the interview ended, he received Xingyao's job offer. "Congratulations! You passed the interview. Welcome to Xingyao PR department." Chapter 2, The Neighbor is My Ex-Girlfriend. A salary of 15,000. Even people who have worked for years might not earn that much. But Shen Huai? He was just a senior about to graduate. Such an incredible stroke of luck, how could he not consider it a blessing? The 3 roommates were still lamenting. Shen Huai had already shut down his laptop and calmly stood up to leave. It was Friday today, and he was to start work on Monday. He needed to get a proper set of professional attire to leave a good impression. As soon as he left the school, his phone in his pocket rang. Shen Huai glanced at the caller ID and answered, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" "Oh my dear Huai, you ungrateful child. You don't call me, so I have to call you, huh?" On the other end of the line, Yang Shuqin's complaining voice sounded. "Graduating soon, busy with thesis defense. I'm lucky if I have time to sleep. I told you, just say what you need to say. Stop with the long preamble, I know you. If you have time to call, then it's definitely not a good thing." Shen Huai didn't spare her any face. "You little ungrateful brat, how can you talk to your mother like that?" Yang Shuqin pretended to be angry and said, then got straight to the point. "Come home for a meal next Monday. Your dad's friend's daughter is coming over too, and..." "Reject." Before Yang Shuqin could finish, Shen Huai decisively interrupted. "You brat, I haven't even finished speaking. I'm not free next Monday because I have to start work." Shen Huai replied bluntly. "What? Work? Yarn Shuqin's tone suddenly shifted, and she became excited. You actually found a job. Yeah, more accurately, the job found me. Shen Huai casually downplayed it. Which company? What's the salary? Xingyao Media, salary 15,000. 15,000, that's not bad. Yarn Shuqin suddenly remembered something. Is this Xingyao Media the one near Binjiang Road, the whole building office complex? Yeah, that's the one. Shen Huai nodded. To his surprise, his mother, who was more into cosmetic surgery and mahjong, actually knew about Xingyao Media. That's quite the coincidence. I've bought 2 apartments near there. Yarn Shuqin became excited. 2 side-by-side apartments, big flats. One of them I've already rented out, so you can just live in the other one. It'll be convenient for your commute. Shen Huai froze for a moment. What? You bought apartments there too? Yeah, you know me, I don't have many hobbies, I just like buying properties. Yarn Shuqin laughed. At those words, Shen Huai's vision went black. Yarn Shuqin wasn't he joking? After all, his father, Xingyao, was the richest man in Huagua and the chairman of Shen Group. With that kind of wealth, it made sense for her to be able to indulge in her property buying habit. That's right. Shen Huai was actually a rich second generation. His father, Xingyao, took Yarn Shuqin to start a business when Shen Huai was young, leaving him in Jiangcheng. Now, his father was the chairman of Shen Group, worth over $1 trillion. Naturally, Shen Huai became a bona fide rich second generation. But this was something he had never told anyone, not even his ex-girlfriend. Because he had been separated from his parents since he was a child, his feelings toward them were complex. He longed for their love, but also felt some resistance to the distance. So he had developed this contradictory personality. He rejected his mother's generous pocket money, worked part-time jobs, and dated in his spare time. In Shen Huai's eyes, all the glory and accolades belonged to the previous generation. If one wanted true respect, they had to earn it themselves. The address is Yiherchindi, Building 5, Apartment 301. I'll send you the password later. As a mother, I have to support my son's career. Yarn Shuqin said cheerfully. Before Shen Huai could respond, she hung up with a click. She's always like this, says everything in a rush and then hangs up. Shen Huai shook his head and smiled helplessly. The next moment, 2 WeChat messages popped up. The password is your birthday, 021228. Our son is all grown up. He is starting work. Good luck. Fireworks. I've transferred 50,000 yuan to you. Use it to buy yourself some good clothes. Clothes are your armor, got it. Then, a bank message followed. Account ending in 0001, Huagua Bank, received 50,000 yuan. Current balance, 67,209.82 yuan. Looking at the bank transfer, Shen Huai couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This mother of his knew he wouldn't accept WeChat transfers. So this time, she learned her lesson and went for the direct bank transfer. Well, since that's the case, he might as well consider the apartment a bonus. Thinking that the place hadn't been lived in for a while, it was probably covered in dust. So Shen Huai quickly bought a bunch of cleaning supplies. Following the GPS, he arrived at Yiherchindi. Yiherchindi. The most expensive location in the entire Jiangcheng. Just the entrance to the complex was enough to make an impression. For massive Roman columns supported the grand gate, almost like the words "I'm expensive" were engraved on the top. Shen Huai walked through, marveling. Places for the rich really are something else. This complex even had its own customized dining hall, and hidden in the back was a private park. He was truly seeing something new. Shen Huai, carrying bags, quickly reached Building 5. Building 5 had a flat layout, with each floor covering 380 square meters and only 2 apartments per floor. Entering the elevator, Shen Huai arrived at the 3rd floor. 021228, Shen Huai entered the password, comparing it with the message Yarn Shuqin had sent him. Password incorrect, please try again. Huh? What's wrong? Shen Huai was puzzled, thinking he might have mistyped. So, he entered the password again. Password incorrect, please try again. As Shen Huai stood there confused. Click the door across from him opened. A girl in a pink pajama set, still groggy from sleep, walked out, holding a bag of trash. Her gaze landed on Shen Huai's face. Both of them froze at the same time. How come it's you? Shen Huai's brain went blank, and a burst of fireworks seemed to explode inside his head. The beautiful girl in front of him was none other than one of his ex-girlfriends, Lu Shen. To call her his ex-girlfriend was a bit of an overstatement. They had only dated for a little over a month. Lu Shen was a typical selfish person. 3 years older than Shen Huai, she hid a restless heart beneath her cold, aloof exterior. They met at a bar, got honest at a hotel. Lu Shen was drawn to Shen Huai's face and his sexual energy, while Shen Huai found her to be carefree, direct, and assertive. They hit it off instantly, their chemistry undeniable. For a whole month, they were like fire and gasoline, making the hotel their home and taking countless photos together. But one day, without warning, Lu Shen suddenly cut off all contact with Shen Huai. No matter how much he tried to reach out, he heard nothing from her. That's when Shen Huai realized he had been unceremoniously dumped by Lu Shen. Lu Shen, on the other hand, never expected to run into her ex in a place like this. This was one of the most luxurious neighborhoods in Jiangcheng. If she remembered correctly, Shen Huai was just a poor guy who had to work part-time to pay for his living expenses. How could someone like him possibly show up here? Could it be? Lu Shen's eyes shifted down, landing on the cleaning supplies bag in Shen Huai's hand. You still working part-time as a housekeeper? Chapter 3, His going to work, not to seduce. Housekeeping. Shen Huai furrowed his brow and looked down at the cleaning supplies in his hand. Only then did he realize that Lu Shen had mistaken him for a housekeeper. You misunderstood. I rented this apartment. Shen Huai quickly made up a lie. It was just a fleeting encounter. There was no need to tell her too much of the truth. You rented it. To his surprise, Lu Shen's eyes widened even more upon hearing that. You can afford to rent a place here. Lu Shen was shocked. Even the smallest units in this area had a starting rent of 20,000 yuan per month. The one she rented was a larger unit, at 40,000 yuan a month. She could only afford it because her company reimbursed her. But Shen Huai, how could he afford such a place? Shen Huai immediately caught the skepticism in Lu Shen's eyes. He cleared his throat and added, "This apartment belongs to a friend of mine. I found a job nearby, and when my friend heard about it, he offered me a place to stay. He said it's just to bring some life to the apartment." After hearing this, most of Lu Shen's doubts vanished. The small spark of rekindled interest she had for Shen Huai was quickly extinguished. Of course. There were no fairy tales where someone from a poor family could defy the odds. Things were different now. It was nearly impossible for someone from a poor background to rise above their class. I see. I thought this place was so expensive, how could you possibly afford it? Lu Shen sighed in relief. Luckily, she hadn't gotten too attached to Shen Huai back then. Looking back, it seemed like a wise choice. Shen Huai smiled but didn't say anything. He turned back and continued fiddling with the password lock. After you enter the password, you need to press the key to open it. Lu Shen, holding the trash bag, casually said this from behind him with a hint of mockery in her voice. Shen Huai froze for a moment and quickly pressed the key. Click. The door opened. Thank you. Shen Huai turned around to thank her, only to find that she had already disappeared. Shrugging, he entered the apartment. As soon as he closed the door, he was stunned by the luxurious decor in front of him. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows almost covered the entire wall. In the center of the living room was a set of handmade European-style sofas. The rectangular dining table could easily seat 20 people. The silver tableware, crystal wine glasses, and priceless artworks on the walls all exuded an air of luxury in every detail. Outside the window, the traffic was bustling, but inside the apartment, it was a world of understated elegance. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the city below, Shen Huai couldn't help but feel like a winner in life. No wonder rich people loved buying large flats. It was all about enjoying the feeling of being above it all. Shen Huai reached out to touch the furniture. It was spotless, as if it had never gathered any dust. He was a bit surprised. His parents had lived by the coast for years, so the place should have been unoccupied. How could there be no dust at all? Just as Shen Huai was still in a daze. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. Shen Huai opened the door, and to his surprise, it was Lu Shen. She had somehow come back. Leaning against the door frame, Lu Shen looked at Shen Huai with a complicated expression. Shen Huai's gaze landed on Lu Shen. In the short time they had been apart, she had changed into a completely different outfit. Her pajamas were gone, replaced by a dark green traditional chapao. The chapao perfectly accentuated her alluring figure. Her black hair was elegantly styled and pinned up with a jade hairpin. Simple but elegant. Her makeup was delicate, with a subtle blush that made her look even more enchanting. Is there something? Shen Huai raised an eyebrow and spoke first. No big deal, I was just curious. How come you didn't bring your campus beauty girlfriend with you? Lu Xing parted her red lips, her gaze sweeping past Shen Huai, intentionally or not, glancing behind him. We've broken up. Shen Huai answered with a double meaning. Moreover, he had only posted about his relationship with the campus beauty, Li Shenran, on social media, and after they broke up, he deleted everything. Lu Xing had blocked all his contact details. So how did she know about Li Shenran? Seemingly realizing that her question was a bit too direct, Lu Xing cleared her throat, returning her gaze to Shen Huai. Want to grab a meal? No time, I need to go buy clothes. Shen Huai shook his head. He always refused his ex's ambiguous invitations. Buy clothes? Let me help you pick. Lu Xing took the initiative. You young guys have no taste, let me take care of it for you. Shen Huai frowned slightly as he looked at Lu Xing. She had always been like this when they were together, dominant, confident, with a strong desire for control. Although their relationship had been more about physical intimacy than ideals or distant dreams, Shen Huai had always sensed Lu Xing's intense desire to control every aspect of his life. Surprisingly, after 3 years, she hadn't changed at all. No need, I'll handle it myself, Shen Huai refused again. No way. Lu Xing snapped, but then quickly realized her behavior was too much and awkwardly smiled. Are you still holding a grudge against me? Shen Huai raised an eyebrow. If there's no love, then how could there be hate? I can explain why I suddenly cut contact with you back then. Shen Huai replied, really no need, there's no point in explaining things from the past. Lu Xing insisted, but it's necessary. I changed jobs and had to travel for 2 years. You know how important my career is to me. I didn't want to get distracted, so I didn't contact you. And when I came back, I found out you had a new girlfriend, so I didn't dare reach out. Now Shen Huai understood. So, it's my fault now. Lu Xing, hands on her hips, argued, isn't it? You couldn't wait for me, could you? I didn't contact you for just 2 years, and you went on to date someone new, not just one person. In the end, you can't blame me entirely. How about this? I'll help you pick out clothes, and you take me to dinner. We'll call it even. What do you think? Shen Huai. Half an hour later. Shen Huai, looking helpless, appeared with Lu Xing at Jiangcheng's most upscale shopping mall. Lu Xing walked confidently into a custom boutique. Hello, show me your latest collection. The sales associate looked at Lu Xing, then at Shen Huai behind her, and smiled. Ms. Lu, is this your boyfriend? He's really handsome. Shen Huai frowned, about to explain, but Lu Xing spoke before him, smiling. Make sure to pick out some accessories for him too. No problem, Ms. Lu, leave it to me. The sales associate quickly walked up to Shen Huai and gestured, Sir, please follow me. Shen Huai, with a stern face, followed the sales associate into the fitting room. 10 minutes later. Lu Xing, waiting outside, seemed a bit impatient. Isn't it ready yet? Almost, Ms. Lu, it'll be done right away. The sales associate buttoned the last button on Shen Huai's shirt and then pulled back the curtain. Lu Xing's eyes immediately locked onto him, and her breath caught. It was true that clothes made the man. The sales associate's eye for detail was exceptional. The midnight blue suit, paired with high-waisted straight-leg trousers in the same color. A white shirt underneath with a slightly open collar, showing off faint chest muscles. Lu Xing's face turned red, and she quickly lowered her gaze, remembering those sultry memories. The pants slightly tapered at the cuffs, revealing custom-made black leather shoes. It fit perfectly, professional and stylish. One word, stunning. This one's perfect. Lu Xing nodded in satisfaction. Shen Huai quickly shook his head. This one's too expensive, I can't afford it. He had glanced at the tag while trying it on. The total price was over 70,000 yuan. Buying it would mean living on air. I'll pay for it. Lu Xing waved her hand confidently and took out a card. Then, she leaned in close to Shen Huai's ear and whispered, "Consider this my way of making up for the hurt I caused you." Before Shen Huai could stop her, she swiped the card with a swish sound. "Don't be too proud of yourself." Shen Huai still didn't take her money. He stood still, looking at her for a moment, before taking out his own card. But Lu Xing shook her head and took his hand, smiling. "Let me do this." He let out a sigh and handed her his card. The sales associate smiled, and after handling the payment, handed him the package. Lu Xing happily walked ahead. Shen Huai was still speechless. But his thoughts were elsewhere. "After all, you can't blame me entirely for this. How about this? I'll help you pick out some clothes, and you take me to dinner. We'll call it even. What do you think?" Shen Huai. Half an hour later. Shen Huai, looking helpless, appeared with Lu Xing at Jiangcheng's most upscale shopping mall. Lu Xing walked confidently into a custom boutique. "Hello, bring out your latest collection for me to have a look." The sales associate looked at Lu Xing, then glanced at Shen Huai behind her, and smiled. "Ms. Lu, is this your boyfriend? He's really handsome." Shen Huai frowned and was about to explain, but Lu Xing spoke first, smiling, "Be sure to pick out some accessories for him too." "No problem, Ms. Lu, leave it to me." The sales associate quickly walked up to Shen Huai and gestured, "Sir, please follow me." Shen Huai, with a stern face, followed the sales associate into the fitting room. 10 minutes later. Lu Xing, waiting outside, seemed a bit impatient. "Is it ready yet?" Almost, Ms. Lu, it'll be done right away." The sales associate fastened the last button on Shen Huai's shirt and then pulled back the curtain. Lu Xing's gaze immediately shifted to him, and her breath caught. Indeed, clothes make the man. The sales associate had a sharp eye. A deep midnight blue as the primary color, paired with high-waisted, straight-leg trousers in the same color. Underneath, a pure white shirt with a slightly open collar, revealing faint chest muscle lines. Lu Xing's face turned red as she quickly lowered her gaze, remembering those sultry memories. The pants tapered at the cuffs, revealing custom-made black leather shoes. It fit perfectly, professional and classy. One word, stunning. "This one's perfect," Lu Xing nodded in satisfaction. Shen Huai quickly shook his head. "This set is too expensive, I can't afford it." He had glanced at the price tag when trying it on earlier. Altogether, it cost over 70,000 yuan. Buying it would mean surviving on air. "I'll pay for it." Lu Xing waved her hand confidently and pulled out a card. Then, she leaned in close to Shen Huai's ear and whispered, "Consider this my way of making up for the hurt I caused you." Before Shen Huai could stop her, she swiped the card with a swish sound and paid. "Ms. Lu, you're really good to your boyfriend," the sales associate said, looking at Shen Huai with envy. Lu Xing smiled brightly at Shen Huai, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I promise, if you wear this suit to your first day at work, your boss won't be able to say a word." Shen Huai, hearing this, only felt a headache coming on. He was going to work, not to seduce his boss. Chapter 4, How did you end up in my bed? I'll pay you back as soon as I can. Carrying the clothes, Shen Huai stopped and said to Lu Xing, "I don't like owing people favors, especially from ex-girlfriends." Lu Xing's eyes flickered, and she silently turned her head away, not responding. As agreed earlier, Lu Xing helped Shen Huai pick out clothes, and Shen Huai would treat her to a meal. Shen Huai pointed to a Japanese restaurant and turned to Lu Xing, asking, "How about Japanese food?" Lu Xing paused for a moment, then shyly nodded. She hadn't expected that after all these years, Shen Huai would still remember her preferences and tastes. Shen Huai ordered a set meal for two online and then walked into the restaurant. He was different from Lu Xing. Lu Xing was easily swayed by emotions. For example, her impulsive purchase of that 75,000 yuan suit for him just now clearly came from the excitement of reuniting with Shen Huai. As for what exactly had excited her, Shen Huai didn't want to analyze. But he was different no matter what happened, he always stayed clear-headed. He would never let his guard down just because Lu Xing was showing him some kindness. He wasn't about to go back to his ex-girlfriend. That would be too shameless. The two of them sat in silence, eating their Japanese food. It seemed that Lu Xing had sensed his coldness and deliberate distance. She looked dejected and absent-mindedly drank her sake. "Waiter, another pot of sake." Lu Xing raised her hand to call out. In the next moment, Shen Huai reached out and pressed her raised hands down. You can't drink anymore. Shen Huai glanced at the empty sake bottles and frowned slightly. His eyes grew a little heavy. Although the sake at the Japanese restaurant was homemade plum wine with low alcohol content, drinking too much would still get her drunk. Moreover, Lu Xing hadn't eaten much, and drinking quickly would only make it worse. Don't interfere with me. Who do you think you are? Lu Xing's face was flushed from the alcohol, her eyes misty, and emotion swirled within them, leaving Shen Huai unable to see them clearly. Let us go, I'll take you home. Shen Huai was too tired to argue and quickly paid the bill. He lifted Lu Xing and headed out. He called a cab, threw her inside, and climbed in himself. Driver, to number 1 Chiendi, please. Thank you. The car sped along. Lu Xing, tossed around by the bumpy ride, was swaying left and right. When they reached their destination, she immediately threw up all over the ground. Shen Huai frowned and quickly carried her to the front door of his place. Lu Xing, wake up. We're home. Shen Huai looked back at the unconscious Lu Xing and asked, do you remember your house code? Millimeter, 0212-28. Shen Huai was momentarily stunned. Wasn't he that the password to his house? His mom had made the passwords for both houses identical. How lazy. He quickly entered the code, opened the door, and laid Lu Xing down on the sofa. Then, he headed to the kitchen, rummaged around until he found some ginger, sliced a few pieces, boiled it with water, and added vinegar, stirring it. A simple hangover remedy was ready. Shen Huai carried the bowl to Lu Xing. Drink a little. Don't mess up your health. His voice was soft and gentle. Lu Xing's eyes were hazy. She looked at the soup in his hand, her gaze drifting for a while. Then, suddenly, Lu Xing sat up, snatched the bowl of soup and set it on the coffee table. With her other arm, she wrapped it around Shen Huai's neck and pulled him toward her. Their lips met. The faint scent of plum wine immediately filled Shen Huai's mouth. Shen Huai's eyes widened in shock. It took him a second to react and quickly pulled away from her grasp. Lu Xing, do you know what you're doing? Shen Huai said, his voice filled with anger. I know. I'm completely sober. Lu Xing's hand was forced away, and her face showed frustration. Shen Huai, do you know? I really miss you. But when I came back to Jiangcheng, I found out you had a new girlfriend. I could only silently watch your life like a thief. As she spoke, Lu Xing started quietly sobbing, her voice filled with grievance. I thought we'd never cross paths again, but unexpectedly, you became my neighbor. And you even broke up. Do you think this is fate giving me another chance? Shen Huai sat quietly beside her, listening to Lu Xing's drunken confession, his emotions complicated. You're drunk. You're talking nonsense. Shen Huai stood up, the hangover soup is on the table. It's up to you whether you drink it or not. It's late, I'm leaving. Without giving her a chance to respond, Shen Huai turned and walked out. He escaped the tiger's den. Shen Huai quickly returned to his own home across the hall. Once he heard the sound of the door locking, he let out a long breath. Lu Xing's gaze just now made him feel like she could devour him whole. It was terrifying. Too terrifying. Indeed. Ex-girlfriends were creatures best avoided. Especially someone like Lu Xing, controlling, career-driven, unpredictable, prone to getting obsessed. It was best to keep a distance. It was late. Shen Huai was already worn out from carrying Lu Xing back, so after a quick wash-up, he collapsed onto his soft bed, quickly falling asleep. The next morning, Shen Huai woke up to a strange suffocating feeling. He opened his eyes groggily. In the next moment, Shen Huai nearly rolled off the bed in shock. Lu Xing, how did you end up in my bed? His mind buzzed as he quickly checked his pajamas. Luckily, he was still dressed. But that wasn't the point. The point was, he had come home alone and gone to sleep alone. How did Lu Xing end up in his bed? Shen Huai's scream finally woke Lu Xing. She groggily opened her eyes, and when her gaze met Shen Huai's, her face immediately froze. How did you get here? Lu Xing looked around in panic, realizing that she was not in her home, but in Shen Huai's apartment. This question should be asked by me, right? Shen Huai frowned. How did you get into my place? At this question, Lu Xing held her aching head. The fragmented memories of last night flooded back. She vaguely remembered. After Shen Huai left, she searched her house for him but couldn't find him. In her stupor, she opened the door and wandered like a ghost to Shen Huai's apartment. She skillfully entered his house with the same password and walked in as if it were her own. As Lu Xing recalled everything, she felt like she had swallowed a bitter pill. She sat on the bed, almost in tears. Shen Huai wasn't he dumb? Looking at the expression on Lu Xing's face, he could guess what had happened. Shen Huai cleared his throat, thinking about how to end this situation. Before he could speak, Lu Xing beat him to it, saying, "Who told you to use the same password as mine? Change it now, understood?" Shen Huai was completely confused. How is this my fault? Anyway, I'm leaving. If there's nothing else, let us avoid meeting in the future. Lu Xing's eyes were filled with guilt, and she didn't dare meet Shen Huai's gaze. She pretended to act calm as she hurried out. After hearing the door open and close, Shen Huai stood there, still stunned, not able to recover from the shock. Last night, he had almost lost his virginity. Lu Xing never played by the rules. Avoid meeting? He didn't want to meet her at all. She had already exhausted him enough last night. Especially with the words she said and that sudden kiss. Shen Huai still felt like something was stuck in his throat when he thought about it. Lu Xing's love was like the tide, who knows when it would crash against the shore. Chapter 5 First Day on the Job. Lu Xing's expression wasn't much better either. When she rushed back to her room, the scenes from last night replayed over and over in her mind like a movie. It's totally out of control. Socially dead, too socially dead. Oh my god, how could I say such humble words? Lu Xing grabbed his hair in despair. She has always boasted of being a strong woman to outsiders, and her words and actions are so reserved that people in the company dare not even breathe when they see her. If it is about socializing on a daily basis, even if I drink white and red drinks mixed together, I would never get this drunk. How come he got knocked down last night just by a few bottles of plum wine? And forcefully kissed Shen Huai. Lu Xing was almost doubting his life. The next day, Shen Huai went in and out, and indeed did not meet Lu Xing again. Because of the big misunderstanding last night, based on Shen Huai's understanding of Lu Xing, she probably won't be able to come back to this door for a while. It's better not to meet, to avoid embarrassment. As a veteran in the love field, Shen Huai adjusted his mentality quickly. After all, he is a boy, even if he is the passive one. After all, he didn't suffer any loss. Instead of getting entangled with your ex-girlfriend, it is better to quickly sort out your mentality and prepare for the upcoming important day. On Monday. It was early in the morning and the alarm clock hadn't rung yet. Shen Huai was awakened by the deafening sound of the door closing next door. It's not that the sound insulation is bad. It was really because Lu Xing's door slamming was so heavy and loud that Shen Huai seriously suspected that she was taking her anger out on the door. Ex-girlfriend, tigress. Especially if your ex-girlfriend is furious, you should not risk this bad luck. Shen Huai pretended not to hear, turned over and looked towards the head of the bed. 7:15. There are only 15 minutes left until the alarm clock sets at 7:30. Well, no need to sleep now. Shen Huai sighed. I couldn't regain the sleepiness after being woken up by Lu Xing, so I just started exercising in the living room. Exercising every day is his unshakable habit. After half an hour of aerobics, Shen Huai felt refreshed, and the tiredness from just getting up also disappeared. Go into the bathroom and take off your shirt. Looking at the tight lines and strong figure in the mirror, Shen Huai couldn't help but sigh. Just based on his figure, even without his looks, he can still capture the hearts of countless girls. Shen Huai smiled at the mirror and then simulated the scene of joining the company. Hello, I'm Shen Huai. No, that smile is a bit vulgar, let's do it again. Hello, I'm a new employee who just joined today. My name is Shen Huai. Thank you for your guidance. Why does your smile feel a little fake? Shen Huai practiced in front of the mirror several times. My face became stiff from laughing. Forget it, we'll just deal with it when the time comes. Shen Huai rubbed his stiff face, walked out of the bedroom, and took out the professional suit that Lu Xing had chosen for him last night from the closet. Let us put aside the matter between Lu Xing and myself. This suit is indeed very decent. Not only does it perfectly highlight his slender figure, but even his waist is faintly visible. Indeed, it is very pleasing to the eyes. Shen Huai took off the tag and put on his clothes one by one, from inside to outside. At last, Shen Huai put the computer into his handbag and turned around several times in front of the full-length mirror. Shen Huai, this is your first job, you must work hard. After Shen Huai encouraged himself, he left with satisfaction. Star Media, the largest and most prestigious brokerage media company in China. It has an unshakable position in the whole of China. Almost half of the popular young actresses in the entertainment industry today come from Xingyao. Xingyao not only has a keen eye for selecting talent, but also has a very accurate eye for choosing scripts. All the films and TV series he has participated in producing have become extremely popular, and he is simply a walking traffic harvester. As a veritable industry leader, Xingyao treats its employees far above market standards. Shen Huai lives only a 5-minute walk from the Xingyao headquarters. Shen Huai looked at the time. There are still 45 minutes before work starts at 9 o'clock. It's more than enough for a bowl of noodles. So, Shen Huai walked into the rice noodle shop nearby and pointed at the luxurious set meal on the menu and said, "Boss, give me one." Hearing this, the boss looked him up and down. "Boss, you look unfamiliar." Shen Huai was stunned for a moment, then chuckled and said, "I just graduated, and today is my first day at work." "So you just graduated from college?" The boss looked at Shen Huai again in shock. "Looking at what you were wearing, I thought you were the boss of a company nearby." Shen Huai looked down and smiled awkwardly. "Shen Huai." Suddenly, behind Shen Huai, a girl spoke hesitantly. Shen Huai frowned and turned around. A very familiar face suddenly appeared before my eyes. Su Meng. Shen Huai almost suspected that he was dazzled. Su Meng was the class beauty whom Shen Huai had a crush on for 3 years in high school. It was also his first love. The ambiguity was exposed the year I graduated from the college entrance examination. 18-year-old Shen Huai was blinded by love. He could have been admitted to a top university, but in order to enter the same university as Su Meng, he secretly changed his choice of major. The result was unexpected. Su Meng's family decided to send her to study abroad. And they were forbidden to meet on the grounds that Shen Huai's family was poor. Shen Huai's 3-year secret love ended in such a ridiculous way. Now 4 years have passed. When the two met again, Shen Huai didn't know how to start the conversation. The Su Meng of today is completely different from the innocent and naive girl in his memory. The plain white long skirt has become a mature OL style. The hip-hugging black skirt perfectly highlights her curves. Even his temperament became much cooler. Su Meng's eyes kept wandering on Shen Huai's clothes. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Haven't seen you for a long time." Shen Huai met Su Meng's gaze with a playful look in his eyes. "It's been a long time indeed. You're wearing this to work. Is there anything wrong?" Shen Huai asked back. "Nothing, I just think it's too dazzling. If you dress better than your boss, you'll easily offend people." "Thank you for your reminder," Shen Huai said indifferently. Su Meng heard this and looked into Shen Huai's eyes calmly. "I never thought that we would meet again one day. I didn't expect that." From Luxing to Su Meng, he met 2 ex-girlfriends in succession in 2 days. This kind of luck is really unique. "Your powder is ready." The noodle shop owner came over with a steaming bowl of noodles, easing the awkward atmosphere between the two. "Thank you." Shen Huai took out 2 chopsticks and started eating. When something embarrassing happens, the busier your hands are, the more natural it will appear. Only. Su Meng seemed to see through Shen Huai's little thoughts at a glance. Not only did he not walk away, but he came over and sat down opposite him openly. "How have you been these years?" Su Meng supported her head with both hands, looking like she was determined to get to the bottom of the matter. "Why, are you curious?" Shen Huai pretended to be calm, but he felt very sad inside. The hands holding the chopsticks were shaking a little. Who understands the destructive power of the sudden appearance of first love? All veterans in the love field have a white moonlight in their hearts that they cannot get. And the white moonlight in Shen Huai's heart is Su Meng. Su Meng's sudden departure was undoubtedly a huge blow to Shen Huai, who was in love at the time. He was so heartbroken that he spent a whole year focusing on sex and not love. It can be said that Shen Huai's emotional attitude of changing women like changing clothes was largely due to her. "Just asking. I won't force you if you don't want to say it." Su Meng looked at her watch and stood up gently. "I'm almost late, I have to go." After saying that, she extended her right hand towards Shen Huai. "See you again if we are destined to." Shen Huai looked at the hand Su Meng extended to him and the words, "See you again if we're lucky enough." Suddenly I felt the powder in my hand was tasteless. I should go too. Facing the hand extended by Su Meng, Shen Huai did not choose to shake it back, but stood up and walked out. A hint of deep meaning flashed in Su Meng's eyes, and she hurriedly chased after him. Chapter 6, X becomes colleague. The two of them walked forward, one in front and one behind. Shen Huai's Chuan brows were getting tighter and tighter. "Aren't you going to work? Why are you following me?" Finally, Shen Huai stopped, turned around and looked at Su Meng and asked. Su Meng raised her eyebrows when she heard this. "Don't be so self-indulgent. I also take this route to work." "Really?" Shen Huai looked unconvinced. "Do I need to lie to you?" Su Meng said jokingly in a teasing tone, "Maybe we are in the same company." Shen Huai's mouth twitched when he heard this. Same company? Then can he continue to work in this class? It would be better to kill him. As they got closer and closer to Xingyao, Su Meng still showed no signs of leaving. Shen Huai began to feel something was wrong. It was not until I walked into the gate of Xingyao Media that I saw Su Meng take out her work badge from her small bag. Shen Huai's forced calmness finally collapsed. "Do you work at Xingyao?" Shen Huai looked embarrassed. Unexpectedly, Su Meng's words actually came true. Su Meng is not a fool either. This entire building belongs to Xingyao Media. The moment Shen Huai walked into the gate, her inner guess was confirmed. But she didn't expect that Shen Huai, a graduate from a mere second-tier university, could actually get a job at Xingyao. "I didn't expect that a joke would come true." Su Meng shrugged, pretending to be relaxed. She was just talking nonsense just now. Who could have thought that meeting her ex-boyfriend at the company would actually become a reality? "Well, I have a lot to do today, so I'll leave first." At this moment, Su Meng just wanted to slip away quickly. "I just said we'll see each other again 5 minutes ago, and now this is happening. This fate will soon have legal effect." Fortunately, the Xingyao headquarters is big enough. So many floors and so many departments. As long as there is not much communication between departments, it is difficult to see each other throughout the year. As a result, he had only taken 2 steps. A woman with big wavy hair came over hurriedly and bumped into Su Meng head-on. "Sister Zhang. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention just now." Su Meng was shocked and apologized quickly. The woman stared at Su Meng expressionlessly and replied calmly, "Remember to look at the road next time you walk. Don't be so panicked." Shen Huai secretly glanced at the work badge hanging on the woman's chest. Zhang Xiaolan, Director of Human Resources Department. It turns out that Su Meng is the leader, no wonder she has such a strong aura. Feeling Shen Huai's scrutinizing gaze, Zhang Xiaolan turned her head and looked at Shen Huai. Then, she lowered her eyes and checked the information in her hand, and said straight to the point, "You are Shen Huai, right?" Hearing this, Shen Huai quickly put on the smile he had practiced at home, stretched out his hand and bowed slightly. "Hello, I'm a new employee who is joining today, Shen." Su Meng, take the new employee to go through the contract process and help him get familiar with Xingyao. Without waiting for Shen Huai to finish his self-introduction, Zhang Xiaolan stuffed a stack of information into Su Meng's hands. "R." The two of them shouted out in unison. Zhang Xiaolan frowned slightly. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "I have a meeting this morning and can't get away." "I should have taught you how to train new employees, right?" Zhang Xiaolan looked at Su Meng. Su Meng's cold aura was completely crushed by Zhang Xiaolan, and she didn't allow her to say a word. She took the information with a depressed look on her face and said in a hoarse voice, I'm fine, Sister Zhang. Since there's no problem, don't just stand there, get moving." After Zhang Xiaolan finished speaking, she hurriedly headed to the next destination in her high heels. Su Meng looked at the information in her hand. The one on the top is Shen Huai's resume. The two looked at each other and suppressed the embarrassment in their eyes at the same time. Su Meng took a deep breath, clenched the edge of the paper with her fingers, and then gently released them. "Come with me." Shen Huai touched his nose, nodded and followed. After walking a few steps, Su Meng suddenly turned around, moved closer to Shen Huai, and said in a low voice, "Can you keep our past a secret?" Hearing this, Shen Huai chuckled, "Don't worry, I have forgotten about the past." When Su Meng heard this, her eyes darkened a little. But he remained calm and responded, "Really? That couldn't be better." Follow Su Meng to the Human Resources Department. Shen Huai discovered that Xingyao's workstations were not open cubicles. Everyone has his or her own mini office, which is only 2 square meters in size, but it is very private. Shen Huai came to Su Meng's office. Only then did I realize that the area around her computer was filled with various mahjong tiles. To be precise, there is a whole row of zhong and fa. She even labeled the body of the drinking cup with the words, "Get rich quickly." Su Meng quickly clicked the mouse to bring up Shen Huai's employment notice. When she saw the column for Shen Huai's salary, her expression changed suddenly. "The salary you are given is 15,000. Su Meng wiped his eyes and looked again. "That is true." Now, she felt unhappy. "I graduated from a top 30 international university and have been working at Xingyao for almost a year, but my base salary has just increased to 12,000 yuan. Shen Huai is just a fresh graduate from a second-tier university, so why is he given 15,000 right away? Who approved this? Could it be that an extra zero was entered for the amount? It's too unreasonable." Su Meng moved the mouse with a serious face and silently clicked on the approval details. "Approved by Zhang Xiaolan." After seeing these 3 words, Su Meng's hope was completely wiped out. If it was someone else, there is a possibility of recording errors. But Zhang Xiaolan knows her too well. He is a detail freak and can even tell at a glance whether the punctuation marks in a contract are British or Chinese. How could such a person make a wrong judgment? Su Meng looked up at Shen Huai with an inexplicable look in her eyes. "Is there a problem with the contract?" Shen Huai noticed that Su Meng's attitude had changed slightly and asked in a low voice. "No problem, just printing is a little slow." Su Meng calmly changed the subject. "The contract is in the corner at the end of the room, can you help me get it?" "Yeah, okay." Shen Huai left quickly and returned quickly. "I have 3 more labor contracts in my hand. Sign and stamp." The labor contract was signed very quickly. After entering Shen Huai's information into the company system, Su Meng bent down, took out a file bag from the drawer and handed it to Shen Huai. It contained the company employee handbook, work badge, and an inactivated meal card. Please refer to the employee handbook for the meal card activation process. Now I will take you to familiarize yourself with your workplace. Let's go. Su Meng was like a mechanical robot, repeating the words she had said countless times without any emotion. But from beginning to end, she didn't dare to look up and meet Shen Huai's gaze. Su Meng led Shen Huai to the headquarters on the first floor, pointed to the floor plan and introduced, "We have a total of 10 major departments in Xingyao. The first to third floors are the Administration Department, Human Resources Department, and Legal Department respectively. The 4th to 8th floors are the Marketing Department, Film and Television Production Department, Public Relations Department, Legal Department and New Media Department respectively. Floors 11 to 15 are all Artist Management Departments." "What about the 9th and 10th floors?" Shen Huai asked. "The entire 9th floor is a cafeteria, and the 10th floor is a fitness area." After saying that, Su Meng pointed at the floor plan and said, "The Public Relations Department you belong to is here, on the 6th floor. I'll take you there now." "Okay." Shen Huai nodded and followed Su Meng obediently. Along the way, Shen Huai always felt as if someone was bugging him from behind. There's more than one. When he looked back, all those gazes avoided him. The elevator door opened and a group of girls rushed in, quickly filling the elevator. Su Meng frowned, sighed softly, and squeezed in on tiptoe. Seeing this, Shen Huai had no choice but to bite the bullet and force his body in. After entering the elevator, this feeling of being on edge not only did not dissipate, but instead reached its peak. The moment the elevator door closed, the eyes of all the girls in the elevator instantly fell on him nakedly. 7. I can't see you when I look up, but I can see you when I look down. Meng, is this your newly signed artist? In the elevator, a girl couldn't help but ask with a smile. Su Meng turned her head and glanced at Shen Huai, her eyes flickering. "No, I'm just an ordinary employee, I just joined today." Hearing this, the girls in the elevator became visibly more excited. "Did you hear that? It's not the artist, it's the employee. Oh my god, he's so handsome, and he's not an artist. Handsome guy, can you add me on WeChat?" When Shen Huai lowered his head, he saw several mobile phone screens stretched out to him, with QR codes clearly displayed on them. As expected of a media company, their approach to chatting people up is so straightforward. Looking at the many QR codes handed over, Su Meng looked impatient and turned away with his eyes down. In full view of the public. Out of politeness, Shen Huai could only take out his mobile phone and scan everyone's QR code. Ding dong. Arrived at the 6th floor. Su Meng had a sullen face and without even saying hello to Shen Huai, she strode out of the elevator. When Shen Huai saw Su Meng leaving, he quickly put away his phone and followed her. Angry. Shen Huai caught up with Su Meng and asked with a smile. Which eye of yours saw me angry? Su Meng suddenly turned around and sneered angrily, isn't it just adding a few WeChat accounts? Can I really stop you from exuding your charm? Well, my charm is indeed irresistible. Shen Huai curled his lips. Su Meng suffered a loss and gave Shen Huai a fierce look. Her footsteps became faster and heavier, and she walked forward stubbornly. Su Meng felt so inexplicably unhappy that even she herself didn't know what was going on. I'm just his ex-girlfriend. It has nothing to do with him now. But Shen Huai added so many girls on WeChat in front of him. It was obvious that he was doing it on purpose to piss her off. Shen Huai shook his head helplessly. As a veteran in the love field, he has a good understanding of women. It's obvious that Su Meng's possessiveness is at work. Although I am no longer her boyfriend. But after all, I had been pursuing her for 3 whole years. In Su Meng's subconscious mind, even if she was not with him, he should still be her property. So when other girls suddenly asked her for their contact information, her emotions would suddenly get out of control. See through but don't speak out. Shen Huai could only follow Su Meng silently. Seeing that Shen Huai not only showed no sign of coaxing her, but instead followed her lazily. The more he thought about comforting Su Meng, the angrier he became, and his pace became faster and faster. Arrive. Su Meng suddenly stopped in front of an office door with an unhappy look on his face. Shen Huai looked over and saw a line of bright characters engraved on the side of the door. Office of the Public Relations Director. Su Meng took a deep breath, glared at Shen Huai fiercely, and then she suppressed the sullen expression on her face. He raised his hand and gently knocked on the office door. Director Lu, your department has a new employee joining today. Well, bring the person in. A deep female voice came from inside the door. Shen Huai frowned. Why does this voice sound so familiar? Su Meng turned around and leaned close to Shen Huai's ear, lowering her voice and saying, don't blame me for not reminding you. Your department director has a bad temper. You're on your own. After saying. Su Meng cleared her throat, gripped the door handle, turned the door open, and immediately put on a standard workplace smile. Director Lu, I've brought the person here. Shen Huai followed Su Meng into the office. They saw a woman sitting on a leather swivel office chair with her back to them, looking at the calligraphy and paintings on the wall. A light blue suit jacket was casually draped over the back of the seat. Looks lazy and casual. Hello, Director Lu. I'm Shen Huai, the new employee who joined today. Seeing that the woman did not turn around, Shen Huai politely introduced himself first. Unexpectedly. When the woman heard the name, Shen Huai, her body stiffened for a moment. Immediately following, the office chair spun half a circle. Lu Xing stared with a pair of shocked eyes, and his pupils were almost shaking. It turns out that they don't have the same name, it's really Shen Huai himself. And Shen Huai practiced that smile countless times. At this moment, his face was completely frozen. How could it be her? Oh my god, are you kidding me? Who would have thought? The day before, my ex-girlfriend and neighbor got drunk and ran to my bed to sleep. It turned out to be my boss. Is there anything more magical than this? And Lu Xing obviously found it even harder to accept. She stood up quickly and looked at the absurd scene in front of her. I almost thought I was still drunk. A few days ago, she heard from her assistant that a new person would be joining the public relations department. Lu Xing didn't take it seriously at first. After all, in a large company like this, it is inevitable that some people with connections will be squeezed in through various channels. So when the assistant sent her the new employee's resume, she didn't even look at it. To hide the embarrassment, Lu Xing quickly looked away, rummaged through the pile of documents on the table, and quickly pulled out a contract to block it in front of himself. Director Lu, are you okay? Su Meng was a little surprised. She had never seen Lu Xing look so panicked. It's okay, go and do your work first. Lu Xing's voice came through the contract. Shen Huai also lowered his head and turned away awkwardly. Su Meng glanced suspiciously between Lu Sheng and Shen Huai. She is just a specialist, but Lu Sheng is the public relations director. No matter how curious she wasn't stupid enough to ask questions in front of Lu Sheng. Final. Su Meng nodded gently. Director Lu, I'll leave first. After saying that, Su Meng gave Shen Huai a look that said, I wish you good luck. Walked to the door and gently closed the office door. The door just closed. The contract that Lu Sheng used as a cover-up was thrown onto the table with a bang. The new company you mentioned that day turned out to be Xingyao. Lu Sheng raised his eyebrows, looking very arrogant. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't ask me. Shen Huai shrugged innocently. You? Lu Sheng was speechless for a moment. Damn, I'm too angry. This matter really has nothing to do with Shen Huai. As long as you have read the resume sent by your assistant once, you will be able to respond in advance. But this is too magical. I had to finally erase that ridiculous night from my memory. He also secretly vowed to meet with Shen Huaishao whenever he had nothing to do in the future. Now it's better. You can't see it when you look up, but you can see it when you look down. She and Shen Huai are now not only in the same company, but also in the same department. The relationship between superiors and subordinates. This is awkward, right? Lu Sheng bit her lip and glanced at the light blue business suit that Shen Huai was wearing. Suddenly I recalled what she said when she was choosing clothes for Shen Huai. I promise that when you wear this outfit to the company on your first day of employment, you will be so handsome that your boss will be speechless. Memories of the dead suddenly came flooding back. Lu Sheng just felt ashamed. I never expected this. In the end, she was actually personally choosing clothes for her subordinates that would please her. Retracting his thoughts, Lu Sheng looked up again. I found that Shen Huai was staring at me intently. Why are you staring at me like that? Lu Sheng frowned unhappily. Shen Huai pursed his lips and said nothing. He glanced at Lu Sheng several times, then looked down at his clothes. Finally, Shen Huai pointed at their clothes. Director Lu, don't you think what we are wearing today looks like couple outfits? Chapter 8 Ripe. Lu Sheng was stunned for a moment. Only then did I realize that what I was wearing today was also bought in that store. They are made by the same master and are from the same series. Now that you mention it, it does look like a couple's outfit. After being reminded by Shen Huai, Lu Sheng's face suddenly changed. She is known as the Cold Queen in the public relations department. If I walked out side by side with Shen Huai wearing couple outfits, I'm afraid that in 5 minutes, the rumors about them would spread to every small group. Just thinking about this, Lu Sheng couldn't help but get a headache. She didn't want to cause herself unnecessary trouble. Although they bought their clothes from a niche designer custom shop, not many people know about it. But you have to know. Xingyao is one of the top media companies in China. Everyone who can work there is a smart person. Especially those in the public relations department, they know all the fashion brands and trend designers very well. As long as the two of them walk out together, people in the office will definitely be able to tell what's going on at a glance. No. They must not appear together. Lu Sheng immediately confirmed this idea in his heart. With his hands crossed and his chin lifted up, he forced himself to act like a leader and dialed the internal phone in front of his desk. Li Hao, come here for a moment. Lu Sheng's decision was exactly what Shen Huai wanted. I have to say that Lu Sheng is really suited for public relations. I just reminded her secretly, and she immediately realized the key point. Shen Huai and Lu Sheng thought the same thing. He didn't want to become the center of company gossip on his first day at work. Soon. There was a brisk knock on the door. Come in. Lu Sheng said in a deep voice. A sunny boy walked in cautiously. Director, you're looking for me. Lu Sheng glanced at Shen Huai and said, the new employee who joined today will be assigned to your group too. You can take him to get acquainted with his colleagues. Li Hao turned to look at Shen Huai, his eyebrows twitching slightly. This boy is quite handsome. Okay, director. Li Hao led Shen Huai out of the office. The door closed instantly. The three people inside and outside the door all breathed a sigh of relief. I was so scared. I thought I was going to be criticized again. Li Hao patted his chest with lingering fear. Seeing this, Shen Huai couldn't hide his smile. Why, is this Director Lu usually very fierce? Wow, brother, you don't understand when you first come here, but you will understand later. To describe our leader as fierce is really too bland. If anyone offends her, it will be like a snowy avalanche. So powerful. Shen Huai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He only knew that Lu Xing was as good as him in theory and practice. I didn't expect that he would be so sharp in the office. You will slowly learn from the experience of blood and tears in the future. Li Hao sighed and patted Shen Huai on the back. Come on, I'll take you to meet the colleagues in Group 2. Li Hao brought Shen Huai to the lobby on the 6th floor. The entire 6th floor is the public relations department. From here to the right, there are 3 teams in total. Li Hao pointed at the transparent cubicles in front of him and introduced them to Shen Huai as he walked. Group 1 is the media group. Its main task is to maintain the relationship between the company and the media, plan and organize press conferences, etc. Group 2, which is the group you are assigned to, is the planning group. The various public relations activities of the contracted brands and social media strategies are all the work of Group 2. Shen Huai nodded and listened carefully. The third group is the content group. As the name suggests, all the creative and writing of PR content, as well as various promotional materials, need to be finalized by them. Okay, Group 2 is here. Li Hao said, pushing open a glass door in the middle. The 4 heads inside raised their heads at the same time and looked at Shen Huai and the others expressionlessly. Let me introduce to you all, this is your new colleague from Group 2 today, Shen Huai. After the words fell, the 4 people continued to look at Shen Huai numbly, as if their souls had been sucked away by something. Looking at the dark circles under the eyes of these 4 people, they are almost as dark as those of national treasures. Shen Huai couldn't help but tremble inwardly. He quickly stepped forward and took the initiative to introduce himself. Hello, my name is Shen Huai. Today is my first day at work. Thank you for your guidance. A slightly plump man hummed in his nose. He took out a business card from the business card box beside him and handed it to Shen Huai, then lowered his head and ignored him. Li Hao was a little embarrassed and quickly tried to smooth things over for him. Fu Hai, the PR specialist of Group 2, he is just like that and doesn't like socializing. Of course, this social interaction is limited to the 3rd dimension. Li Hao whispered into Shen Huai's ear, he's a typical otaku. Shen Huai's eyes quietly fell on Fu Hai's computer. Looking at the full frame of Hatsune Miiku's action figure pin card, I instantly understood. Qi Mingfei, specialist of Group 2. The man next to Fu Hai stood up, shook hands with Shen Huai in a fake manner, then sat down immediately, turned his head away and fell into a deep sleep. Li Hao looked at the messy Group 2 in front of him and felt a headache. Forget it, let me introduce it. Li Hao took Shen Huai and quickly introduced him. Jiang Xinshan, a specialist in Group 2, is mainly responsible for the monitoring and maintenance of public relations brand accounts. Jiang Xinshan stared at Shen Huai's face, hurriedly put on a mask, and subconsciously scratched her bangs with her hand. Hello. Wan Dequan is also a specialist in Group 2. Like Fu Hai and his team, he is responsible for planning public relations brand activities. In the corner, Wan Dequan, whose name was called, raised one hand symbolically, then quickly put it down. After saying that, Li Hao looked around, frowned and looked at Fu Hai. Where is your team leader? Faced with Li Hao's questioning, the 3 men remained silent. Seeing this, the only girl, Jiang Xinshan, could only bite the bullet and say, I guess they are going over the plan. Then, Wan Dequan's weak voice came from the corner. I worked all night to come up with this plan. If I fail this time, I will really die here. As soon as the words fell, a figure suddenly appeared at the door. It's past, the plan is past. A clear female voice came. I saw a girl holding a computer, standing at the door with an excited look on her face, her inner joy completely overflowing on her face. Li Hao looked back and pulled the girl into the office as if he had seen a savior. You came at the right time. Here, this newcomer has been assigned to your Group 2. Take good care of him. Seeing this, Shen Huai hurried over to meet him. However, the moment he saw the other person's face clearly, Shen Huai's outstretched hand instantly stopped in mid-air. Why is it you? Shen Huai was completely confused. The leader of Group 2 in front of him is also one of Shen Huai's ex-girlfriends, Tong Yu, the campus beauty from Jianghai University next door. When Shen Huai represented the school in a debate competition, he met Tong Yu, who also represented the school in the competition. What day is today? How can I meet my ex-girlfriends one after another in the same company? Tong Yu's reaction was even stronger when she saw Shen Huai for a moment. The whole person froze right where he was, and his computer almost fell to the ground. If Li Hao hadn't been quick enough to catch it, the computer would have been scrapped on the spot. Wow, I didn't expect Tong Yu to have such a big reaction when she saw a handsome guy. She was so excited that she couldn't speak. Li Hao, who was unaware of the truth, was still making jokes on the side without knowing the consequences. Tong Yu glared at him, and Li Hao immediately shut up. The new employee the boss was talking about is you. Tong Yu said in a somewhat cold tone. Seeing the team leader's unusually sharp attitude, everyone instantly smelled a hint of gossip. The original sleepiness was instantly replaced by curiosity, and they all pricked up their ears and came closer. What a coincidence, we meet again. Shen Huai forced a smile. So you two know each other? Li Hao realized belatedly. Hearing this, Tong Yu pursed her lips, clenched her teeth, and a trace of annoyance flashed in her eyes. I'm not familiar with him, but I've seen him a few times in the school debate competition before. Meet by chance. Everyone looked a little teasing. Looking at the tense aura when the team leader saw Shen Huai, it didn't seem like they were unfamiliar with each other. On the contrary, it seems to be ripe. Chapter 9. This action is very dangerous. Looking at Shen Huai's scumbag face. All the little moments that I had with Shen Huai suddenly came to my mind. The look in his eyes as he stared at Shen Huai became increasingly serious, as if he was about to call him to account in the next second. Now, Shen Huai wanted to die. Why is Xingyao such a weird company? It was amazing that so many of his predecessors were able to gather in one company. Suddenly, Shen Huai inexplicably recalled the questions asked by the interviewer during the interview about how to deal with the relationship with the ex-girlfriend. Originally, Shen Huai thought that the interviewer asked these questions just to test his ability to respond on the spot. But now it seems it's far from that simple. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Li Hao quickly tried to smooth things over. Since you and team leader Tong are old acquaintances, that's even better. We can save on the adjustment process. Upon hearing this, Tong Yu snorted with extreme disdain. Such a cold attitude really made the onlookers on the side enjoy watching the show. I think there must be a story between our team leader and this Shen Huai. Fu Hai muttered quietly. Nonsense, do you still need me to tell you? We are not stupid. Team leader Tong usually looks decisive and efficient, but I didn't expect that he actually likes this type of person. Wan De Quan said, smacking his lips. Why do you think we are in that kind of relationship? We can't just be friends. Jiang Xinshin rolled her eyes. What kind of friend is so sarcastic right from the start? Come to think of it, it can only be that kind of relationship. Wan De Quan acted like an experienced person. So, tell me, was it our team leader who cheated on Shen Huai, or was it Shen Huai who cheated on the team leader? I'm not a fortune teller. If you ask me, who should I ask? The office is just this small. The whispering voices of the four people all fell into Shen Huai's ears. Shen Huai sighed heavily. Finished. The thing I least wanted to happen still happened. I thought that by avoiding Lu Sheng, I could at least win a good reputation in the company on my first day at work. Unexpectedly, after one ex left, another one came. Tong Yu naturally also heard these people's gossip. She glared at a few people fiercely. Why, you're not sleepy after staying up for 2 nights, right? You still have the energy to make up stories here. In that case, I don't think there's any need to adjust the leave schedule. Don't go home anymore. As soon as these words came out, the 4 of them surrendered immediately. Sister Tong, we were wrong. With just one sentence, he dealt with 4 people. Tong Yu's gaze then fell on Shen Huai again. Shen Huai, come with me. Shen Huai glanced at Li Hao, and Li Hao could only shrug helplessly. After all, he is just Lu Sheng's assistant. To a tough girl like Tong Yu, his words carry no weight at all. Shen Huai followed Tong Yu with a heavy heart all the way to the corner of the stairs on the 6th floor. Tong Yu looked around. After making sure that no one noticed this side, he quietly opened the door of the utility room, pushed Shen Huai into the room, and then slammed the door shut. Team leader Tong, what are you doing? The moment he heard the door close, Shen Huai felt inexplicably nervous. Why did you leave me back then? Tong Yu pushed Shen Huai against the door and asked sharply. I leave you? Shen Huai was so angry that he laughed. Team leader Tong, why are you still blaming me? It was you who proposed the breakup in the first place. Shen Huai remembers it clearly. That year. Tong Yu represented Jianghai University in the national debate competition and happened to meet Shen Huai, who was also representing Jianghai University of Science and Technology. Jianghai University is one of the top 10 universities in China, while Jianghai University of Science and Technology, where Shen Huai is located, is only a second-tier university. Tong Yu, who is 2 years older than Shen Huai, did not take Shen Huai seriously at first. But Shen Huai's crazy output of overcoming all obstacles and turning the tide almost drove his opponents into autism one after another. Finally, she advanced to the finals and competed with Tong Yu. That final was the ceiling of debate. Tong Yu and Shen Huai were looking for flaws in each other's logic and made sharp remarks that left all their teammates dumbfounded. In the end, Shen Huai was better and won the debate competition that year. That was the first time that a second-tier college participated in the competition and won an award. This result surprised everyone and was beyond Tong Yu's expectations. Perhaps it was Shen Huai's incredibly strong performance in the finals that made Tong Yu, who already admired strong people, excited. In addition, Shen Huai's external conditions are already very superior. The game ended shortly afterwards. Tong Yu found Shen Huai and confessed her feelings to him in front of him. She is the campus beauty of Jianghai University. Tong Yu is tall, has an outstanding figure, and her appearance can score a high score of 9. Shen Huai happened to be single at that time, so naturally he had no reason to refuse. Tong Yu can be summed up in one sentence. She is an extreme feminist defender who is extremely sensitive. This is something Shen Huai gradually realized later. They always quarrel over trivial matters. These things once made Shen Huai feel that the quarrel itself was full of absurdity. For example, should we split the bill for meals? Should boys experience the pain of childbirth, and is it a bad custom for children to take their father's surname? Once or twice, Shen Huai was able to discuss with her respectfully and as an equal. However, Tong Yu became more and more excited as she spoke. They refused to give in and insisted on arguing about who was right and who was wrong, turning their relationship into a debate. Until one day, they started arguing over the meaningless topic of should girls have children. This time the argument was very intense. Tong Yu was so excited that she even insisted that Shen Huai kneel down and apologize. This is undoubtedly an insult to someone with a strong self-esteem like Shen Huai. Shen Huai couldn't remember how many times this had happened. He was already exhausted both physically and mentally from this meaningless discussion. To put it in a positive way, Tong Yu's personality is independent, autonomous and clear-headed. To put it in a narrow sense, he is always self-centered and hopes that Shen Huai will submit to him. Are you going to kneel down or not? If you don't, we will break up. Tong Yu asked harshly. Let's break up, Tong Yu, you are too selfish. I am tired. This was the last sentence Shen Huai said to Tong Yu. Like other predecessors, Shen Huai handled this relationship decisively and without any hesitation. 2 months of chaotic love ended so abruptly. How come it has come to this now? And it became his fault. Tong Yu heard Shen Huai's answer and looked even more unwilling. You clearly knew that I was just saying that in anger. As long as you apologize, I will forgive you, but you chose to let go. Isn't this your problem? Hearing this, Shen Huai sneered inwardly. This is typical sophistry. Confuse facts and blur concepts. Package your own problems as goodwill and throw them to the other party from the moral high ground. Not only will you make the other party take the blame, but you will also make them feel guilty. I have to say that Tong Yu is still as eloquent as ever. Dare to speak and dare to act, but never willing to bow down and reflect on oneself. Team leader Tong, it's been so long, why are you still keeping it in mind? Could it be that you still can't forget your old feelings for me? Shen Huai changed the subject calmly. You wish. Tong Yu's eyes darkened. I just simply don't like you. Then I feel relieved. After all, it is clearly stated in the employee handbook that office romances are prohibited. Shen Huai turned his head to look at Tong Yu's hand on his shoulder, and raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he raised his hand, suddenly grabbed Tong Yu's wrist, and pushed her back. The two of them switched positions instantly. Tong Yu was pressed against the door, her expression suddenly turned ashamed and angry. Shen Huai, you. Shen Huai leaned close to Tong Yu, and his hot breath quietly fell into her ears. Team leader Tong, as a man and ex, I feel I have an obligation to remind you. Don't do such intimate things to your subordinates in the future. It's very dangerous. Chapter 10 Shen Huai, you are such an ungrateful man. Tong Yu ran out of the utility room with a red face. Shen Huai did not follow. This ordeal had consumed almost all of his energy. I looked at the time and realized it was already time for dinner. But Shen Huai was not hungry at all. He spent the morning hanging out with his ex-girlfriends. I was exhausted both physically and mentally, and had forgotten about hunger. Walk out of the utility room. Shen Huai turned his foot, pushed open the door of the stairwell and walked into the stairwell. The stairwell was dark and empty. The moment the heavy fire door closed, he felt that the noise around him became much quieter. Shen Huai casually wiped the step above his face and sat down with a sigh. Then he took a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. The smell of tobacco entered his lungs and Shen Huai exhaled a long cloud of smoke. The tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed a little. In fact, he doesn't smoke much on weekdays. I'm not addicted to cigarettes. Only when he is under a lot of pressure will he take it out and smoke 2 cigarettes to calm his mood. Like, right now. The shocks I received this morning were too concentrated, one after another. Shen Huai couldn't digest it for a while. After all, what good person can meet 3 exes in a row in the same company? Especially his direct superior, Tong Yu. He had already seen how terrifying this man was. What they are best at is derogatory PUA. She will first say that you are worthless, and then use the opportunity to elevate herself, making you full of awe for her words and her as a person. If I wasn't strong enough inside, I wouldn't be able to recognize the trick in her words at a glance. Maybe you will really be brainwashed and become her bootlicker. Such a person would definitely be a great help as a business partner. But if you become her significant other, then you will most likely become her appendage for the rest of your life. How to survive in a workplace full of exes? This is a major problem that Shen Huai is currently facing. Shen Huai took another heavy puff of his cigarette. Or, just quit. As soon as this thought came to his mind, Shen Huai immediately shook his head to nip it in the bud. He is not the type to back down when faced with a problem. Moreover, Xingyao is a company that countless people try their best to get into. He had such a high starting point right after graduation, there was no way he would give up easily. Although he has many ex-partners, he has been very serious in every relationship. Even though he is a scumbag, he also has an attitude. I can barely say that I have a clear conscience. Shen Huai took a final puff of his cigarette butt, threw it on the ground, crushed it a few times with his feet, and started thinking quickly. Let us talk about Su Meng first. Although she is also in Xingyao, she is not in the same department as him, nor is she on the same floor. She should not be a big threat in daily life. Moreover, there are not many disputes between him and Su Meng, so she shouldn't deliberately make things difficult for him. Next is Lu Shen. He knows this person better. He clearly distinguishes between public and private affairs, and is not personal but objective. He is a typical workaholic. With this kind of personality, he shouldn't take revenge on himself with ulterior motives. And to be more serious, even if you examine their past relationship, Lu Shen is guilty of himself. Therefore, Lu Shen was not a big threat to him. In the end, only Tong Yu was left. When he thought of Tong Yu, Shen Huai just felt a headache. With Tong Yu's meticulous personality. Now that I'm in her hands and have become her subordinate, I don't know what kind of obstacles she will create for me in the future. Maybe at this moment, she was already thinking about how to embarrass herself. Thinking of this, Shen Huai sighed heavily again. Studying in this class is really like walking on thin ice. Suddenly, Shen Huai vaguely heard a faint sobbing sound. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. After all, I have been sitting here for so long and haven't heard any sound before. Soon, Shen Huai found that he had not heard wrongly. He raised his head silently. The crying sound came from above my head. My thoughts were interrupted by the sobbing sound. Shen Huai lost the motivation to continue thinking, and instead became curious about the owner of the crying voice. Judging from the crying sound, it seems to be a girl. I don't know what kind of injustice she suffered, but she was secretly hiding in the stairs and wiping her tears in broad daylight. Shen Huai's gene of kindness and generosity is stirring again. He quietly stood up, felt in his pocket, and found a pack of tissues. Walk up the stairs. In the darkness, Shen Huai saw a thin figure sitting on the steps with his back to the light. She wrapped her arms around her knees, buried her head between her legs, and began to cry. Shen Huai walked over, patted the girl's shoulder gently, and handed her a tissue in a friendly manner. Why are you crying here alone? The crying stopped abruptly. Hearing Shen Huai's voice, the girl looked up in panic. In an instant, the tissue in Shen Huai's hand fell to the ground. When their eyes met, two faces were shocked to the point of being speechless. There were tears on the girl's face, and the surprise in her pupils was almost overflowing. He looked stiffly at the tissue on the ground, then slowly raised his head to look at Shen Huai. Shen Huai's CPU was completely burned out. For a moment, he began to doubt the authenticity of everything he saw. I haven't woken up yet. Or did I accidentally stumble into some novel about how to capture an ex? Or maybe, am I dreaming now? Shen Huai pinched his thigh lightly for some unknown reason. Oh shit, that hurts so much. A real sense of empathy came from my legs, indicating that everything before my eyes was not a dream. Now, Shen Huai became even more panicked. Oh my god, what is going on? How come he ran into a familiar person while smoking a cigarette on the stairs? The girl in front of him crying bitterly was one of Shen Huai's ex-girlfriends, Liu Shisha. She was also the only person who took the initiative to break up in all his love relationships. Liu Shisha reacted belatedly, stood up quickly, turned her face away in panic, and wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. She never expected it. She and Shen Huai actually met again in such an embarrassing situation. Moreover, he saw my ugly appearance of hiding in the stairwell and crying. The more Liu Shisha thought about it, the more ashamed she felt. She was filled with anger and felt it stuck in her throat. She tried to think of something for a long time but couldn't utter a single word. Seeing that Liu Shisha didn't speak for a long time, Shen Huai understood. He knows Liu Shisha too well. A person who chooses to digest the injustice silently no matter how much injustice he suffers. In order to please others, one may even sacrifice oneself. When he was with Liu Shisha, he was attracted by her sweet smile. Because she grew up in a single-parent family, Liu Shisha has a sense of inferiority engraved in her genes. This inferiority complex has permeated every aspect of her life. As a result, no matter how much injustice she suffered outside, no matter whether she was right or wrong, she would swallow it. Their humble appearance sometimes made Shen Huai angry. Because Shen Huai is so handsome, Liu Shisha feels insecure inside. I always feel that Shen Huai will change his heart one day. In order to tie Shen Huai to herself, Liu Shisha did all kinds of things that were difficult for Shen Huai to accept. The most commonly used method is to torture himself in order to keep Shen Huai by his side. This made Shen Huai very tired, and repeated reminders were still useless. Finally, when Liu Shisha was about to hurt herself again, Shen Huai took action in time, snatched the eyebrow pencil from her hand and threw it far away. Unable to bear it any longer, Shen Huai proposed breaking up for the first time. And tell her seriously that gaining sympathy by hurting yourself is not love. Shen Huai claims that he is not a romantic person. Never break up easily, but once you say it, there is no turning back. It seems now. Most likely, Liu Shisha encountered some grievances in the workplace, so she hid here alone to vent. Unexpectedly, she was caught by her ex-boyfriend. He bent down to pick up the tissue, pulled out a piece of paper, and handed it to Liu Shisha again. Why are you still crying like before? Who bullied you? Unexpectedly. After hearing this, Liu Shisha, who had been suppressing her emotions, could no longer hold back. Tears as big as beans rolled down her cheeks, and she looked extremely aggrieved. Shen Huai, you are a heartless man. Chapter 11. Will you like me again? This complaint made Shen Huai stunned. Liu Shisha felt embarrassed and annoyed, her face flushed as she glared at Shen Huai. You abandoned me back then, and now you suddenly appear in front of me, pretending to please me. I'm telling you, I won't fall for it now. Sure enough, my heart is still as sensitive as before. Shen Huai regretted so much that he wanted to slap himself. Why is there so much compassion? Is it really necessary to meddle in this trivial matter? Now, there is one more ancestor to worry about. Seeing Shen Huai didn't say anything, Liu Shisha's eyes twitched for some unknown reason. Was it because I was a little excited just now and scared him? Wasn't he the look I had just now scary? He was kind enough to hand me the paper, but I said that to him. Isn't that too petty? Liu Shisha's mind was full of random thoughts. She took a deep breath to calm herself down, and then she realized a problem belatedly. That's not right. This is at work, not at school. Shen Huai, why are you here? I joined Xingyao today, and we will be colleagues from now on. Shen Huai saw through their confusion in Liu Shisha's eyes and smiled faintly. After hearing Shen Huai's explanation, Liu Shisha's eyes widened, You are also interning here. She is not a formal employee of Xingyao, but an intern. The salary was only 1,500 yuan, and I had to get up early and go to bed late every day, running around day and night with the video team. The reason why she was hiding here and crying just now was because the work pressure was too great. She was so busy every day that she couldn't eat at normal meal times. She felt like she couldn't bear it any longer. However, this internship position treats people like slaves. She finally got it after passing numerous assessments and overcoming all the difficulties. But she clearly remembered it. There is no Shen Huai's name on this list of interns. How did he get in here? Shen Huai coughed tactically and explained calmly, I'm not an intern, I'm a probationary employee. I'm in Group 2 of the Public Relations Department, a public relations specialist. It's my first day at work. I'm still on probation. Hearing this, Liu Shishi's face froze. My already fragile glass heart was quietly broken again. When did Xingyao start campus recruitment for second-tier universities? Being the first in the professional grade, Liu Shishi had fought hard to get this internship opportunity. Although she is not good at speaking, she is extremely sensitive inside. But it is also because of this that Liu Shishi is an expert in content creation. Xingyao was impressed by her excellent talent for writing, so he made an exception and hired her, a student from a second-tier university, as an intern. But Shen Huai didn't say a word and skipped the internship to become a full-time employee. The most important thing is, that's the public relations department. It is the most core department of the entire Xingyao except for the artist management department. It is said that the recruitment threshold of this department is extremely high, and a master's degree from a 211 college is only the most basic threshold. No matter how outstanding Shen Huai is, his academic qualifications do not meet the recruitment requirements. How did he do it? Could it be that he stuffed money into it? That's not right either. It's not that Xingyao doesn't have connections, but if you want to buy a spot, even an internship spot like hers, the starting amount would be at least 100,000. Based on her understanding of Shen Huai's family background, his family could not afford this money. Just a few breaths. Liu Shishi's mind was already in a state of conflict, with countless guesses popping up in her mind. Shen Huai had no idea what she was thinking at the moment. He looked at the time and it was already past dinner time. Today was his first day at work, and he encountered so many incredible things. If he doesn't go back to the office now, the scandal between him and Tong Yu will probably spread throughout the company soon. If other exes saw this, I would be really screwed. Since you're okay, I'll leave first. Shen Huai now just wants to run away quickly. Being alone with his ex on a closed staircase for so long made him feel very uncomfortable. Unexpectedly, Liu Shishi suddenly reached out and grabbed Shen Huai's wrist. Have you thought of me over the years? Shen Huai closed his eyes helplessly. What is coming will eventually come. He came back to his senses, exhaled lightly, and forcefully pried Liu Shishi's hands apart. Shishi, we have to look forward, understand? We've been apart for a long time. Liu Shishi held on even tighter, but I have tried my best to change what you said. You said that I should learn to love myself first. So I worked hard to get an internship opportunity at Xingyao, but I didn't expect that you were also in this company. Shen Huai, do you think we still have a chance? No way. Shen Huai interrupted Liu Shishi coldly and looked straight at her. Shishi, I don't like lying, so I don't want to give you any unfounded hope. That will only hurt you. Even if I change very well, it's still impossible. Why? Liu Shishi's eyes revealed a trace of pain. Don't you understand? This is not a question of whether you have changed well or not. It's that you don't need to change at all. You don't need to change for me or for anyone else. Do you understand? Shen Huai felt it was very difficult to communicate with Liu Shishi. Why does she always distort what she says? No, I don't understand. It's obvious that you don't love me anymore, so you just made up an excuse to fool me. As Liu Shishi spoke, tears welled up in her eyes again. You think too much. Just as Shen Huai was about to retort, the phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. Shen Huai took it out and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. He glanced at Liu Shishi and pressed the answer button in silence. Hello, who is this? Who is this? Shen Huai, you're skipping work on your first day at work like this. Tong Yu's cold voice came out from the microphone. I'll be back soon. Shen Huai said, covering the microphone. Hearing this, Tong Yu's tone suddenly changed. Where are you now? Why is the echo so loud? Shen Huai suddenly felt something was wrong and hung up the phone without saying anything. Strictly speaking, it is still lunch time. But he knew that Tong Yu was a mean guy and would definitely find ways to cause trouble for him. I just didn't expect that he would come to me so soon. Shen Huai apologized to Liu Shisha. My boss called and asked me to go back to my workstation. I have to go. Seeing this, Liu Shisha pursed her lips and said nothing. I just took a few steps. Shen Huai turned around and saw Liu Shisha still standing there. He sighed and added, Shisha, you are really excellent. Don't always dwell on the past, and don't care too much about what others think. Just be yourself. After saying, Shen Huai slowly opened the door of the stairwell and left quickly. See people walk away. Liu Shisha's tense body finally relaxed. Their whole person leaned against the wall dejectedly, as if his support had been taken away. She thought she had completely let go of Shen Huai. But just as Shen Huai turned and left, Liu Shisha then realized that she had been deceiving herself all along. If I remain myself, Shen Huai, will he like me again? She narrowed her eyes and closed them heavily. The last words Shen Huai said kept repeating in my mind. Chapter 12, Teaching by Example. Shen Huai quickly returned to the office. As soon as I pushed open the glass door, before I saw anyone, a sharp sneer fell into my ears. It's my first day at work. It's pretty busy. I can't even see anyone. Tong Yu sat at the team leader's workstation, glanced sideways at the door, and said something indifferently. Shen Huai gritted his teeth and smiled as he faced the challenge. Team leader Tong, you called me during lunch break, is there something wrong? Tong Yu stopped typing on the keyboard, glanced at Shen Huai leisurely, and pointed to the empty seat opposite her with a smile. This is your future workstation. Shen Huai's Adam's apple moved slightly. His eyes turned to the empty seat. He looked around the office again. Damn, this guy must have done it on purpose. There were clearly several empty workstations next to Fu Hai and the others, but he was made to sit opposite him. It was obvious that the intention was to make him unhappy. Team leader, I think it would be better if I sat next to Fu Hai. Why, are you not satisfied with the seat I arranged for you? Tong Yu glanced at him coldly. Does it wrong for you to sit across from me? Shen Huai saw this. The anger in my heart also rose. Okay, you really want to cause trouble, right? Then let's see who can hurt whom. Shen Huai walked towards Tong Yu and whispered in a tone that only she could hear, Team leader Tong, Shen Huai, am not such a stingy person. Whether you sit opposite me or on top of me, I won't feel wronged. You? Tong Yu's cheeks suddenly turned red, and a hint of anger flashed in her eyes. After Chen Qian's revenge, Shen Huai was in a good mood. He happily sat down opposite Tong Yu, ignoring the murderous look from the opposite side, and happily turned on the computer. Public is public, private is private. When it comes to work, Shen Huai is still very serious. According to the procedures in the new employee handbook, the first 3 days on the job are spent familiarizing yourself with the company's internal system and understanding various rules and regulations. 3 days later, you will take the online exam for new employees, and only after passing it will you be exposed to specific execution work. So Shen Huai's main task for the next 3 days. It is to familiarize myself with all the processes of Xingyao and prepare for the new employee examination in 3 days. Lunch break is over. Shen Huai has also become roughly familiar with the various internal systems of the company. The employee back-end system has also been successfully bound. Just as Shen Huai clicked into the new employee area and was about to browse the general scope of the exam, the phone suddenly vibrated. Shen Huai picked it up and took a look. Miku applies to add you as a friend. It's a friend request. Although Shen Huai is not interested in the two-dimensional world, he is not ignorant of it. Miku happens to be another name for Hatsune Miku. Shen Huai turned his head and looked at Fu Hai. Fu Hai just gave him a simple smile, picked up his phone, shook it, pointed at the screen, and begged him to pass with his mouth. Shen Huai glanced at Tong Yu opposite him. At the moment, she was buried deep in front of the computer screen, staring at the public opinion data, and didn't notice the little episode here at all. Tong Yu's computer is different from others. It's a desktop computer with dual screens. Bigger, more powerful, and faster than anyone else's laptop. Certainly. Her figure was also perfectly hidden behind the 32-inch display screen. Shen Huai naturally had no reason to refuse the friendly olive branch extended by his colleague. Shen Huai quietly made an OK gesture to Fu Hai. Then clicked pass. Next second, Fu Hai, who accepted the friend request, immediately sent him a new link. Mikufu invites you to join the "Did the company go bankrupt today?" group chat. Look at this group nickname. Shen Huai couldn't help but burst out laughing. How much resentment must be accumulated to name the complaining group like this? But having said that, from the side, I look quite friendly. I didn't expect that I could infiltrate the inner circle so easily on my first day at work. Thinking this, Shen Huai joined the group chat without saying a word. As expected, there is no Tong Yu in the group. This was a small group of 4 people, and now with him, the group has become 5 people. Before Shen Huai could react, the phone suddenly started vibrating wildly, and the screen was instantly flooded with 99 plus messages. Welcome by .jpg. Welcome the newcomers, fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. Brother, are you a new user? Help me cut the code past the microphone.jpg. Red envelope.jpg. Red envelope.jpg. Red envelope.jpg. Oops. Shen Huai was startled and hurriedly turned off the sound of his phone. Unfortunately, it's too late. Shen Huai raised his head in fear and met Tong Yu's scrutinizing gaze. Tong Yu glanced around coldly, and finally her gaze fell back on Shen Huai, and said in a gloomy way, "It seems that our new employee is very busy, and his mobile phone keeps ringing with messages. Sorry, I forgot to turn off the sound. I will pay attention next time." Shen Huai was caught red-handed by Tong Yu and had no choice but to admit defeat. He looked through the employee handbook during his lunch break. Xingyao does have a rule that mobile phones can only vibrate during work hours and cannot be turned on. However, Tong Yu refused to give in. She rolled her eyes and changed the subject. As a team leader, training new employees is one of my responsibilities. I am also responsible for not reminding you. Let's not hold grudges for what happened just now. From now on, you, Shen Huai, will be my assistant. Wherever I go, you go. Teaching by example is the only way to learn quickly. What do you think? As Tong Yu spoke, she tapped the table rhythmically with the pen in her hand, as if waiting for Shen Huai's answer. Wan Dequan and the other 3 dared not to breathe. They could only shrink their necks and look at Shen Huai with apologetic eyes. Fu Hai, in particular, looked extremely guilty. After all, those 99 plus messages that swiped the screen were basically his credit. I didn't expect that it would harm Shen Huai. Being a corporate slave means at most that your spiritual energy will be sucked away. Being Tong Yu's assistant would be fatal. You know, she is the apprentice taught personally by director Lu Sheng. Compared with Lu Sheng, it can be said that the disciple is better than the master. The pursuit of perfection has reached an outrageous and morbid level. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stayed up for 2 late nights and revised the plan countless times. Within Xingyao, all management positions starting from team leader are generally equipped with at least 1 assistant. Only Tong Yu didn't. The reason is very simple. No assistant can last a full month working for Tong Yu. The final fate of all the former assistants was to cry and beg to be transferred out of Group 2. Over time, the position of Group 2 assistant has been shelved. In the public relations department, the 3 major groups are not independent, but collaborate with each other. So Fu Hai and his team would occasionally participate in some projects of the neighboring group. Only the assistant belongs to the team leader alone. In other words, if Shen Huai really became Tong Yu's assistant, it would be no different from a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth. Fu Hai and the other 3 looked at Shen Huai with sympathy. He shook his head slightly, begging Shen Huai to refuse. However, Shen Huai suddenly smiled, raised his hand to loosen his tie, and looked at him meaningfully. Are you really teaching by example? Team leader Tong, you said so. Everyone is here. I, Tong Yu, am not someone who doesn't keep my word. Tong Yu suppressed a smile and said, it's just that I am a person who has very strict requirements for assistants. If they can't meet my requirements within a month, they will leave on their own. I understand. Shen Huai didn't care and his smile deepened. Chapter 13 Don't joke with your body. I don't know why. When Tong Yu heard that Shen Huai agreed to her conditions, she was not happy at all about her successful revenge. Instead, he sensed a hint of danger from Shen Huai's smile. Is it so easy to agree? I always feel like there's something wrong that I can't explain. When Fu Hai and others saw Shen Huai agree immediately, they all looked sad. Shen Huai is finished. I bet he wouldn't last a week. I think he has a good appearance, but I still hope he can stay longer. What are you talking about? In the end, it's all your fault. Why are you refreshing your screen for no reason? The four of them put their heads together again and whispered. If I still had some doubts before, now I am 100% sure that the team leader and Shen Huai definitely have an old relationship. Wang Dequan stroked his chin and said with certainty. Looking at the tense situation between the two of them, I think your intuition is correct. Qi Mingfei nodded in agreement. Oh my god, my ex-boyfriend becomes my subordinate. Even the script wouldn't dare to write something so crazy. Jiang Xinshin covered her face with their computer and ate melons online. The three-dimensional world is so complicated. My Maiku is the most understanding. Shut up, you fat bastard. The three of them glared at the culprit in unison. As soon as their words fell, everyone's computer received a meeting reminder. Meeting reminder, there are 5 minutes left until the meeting at 3 p.m. Tong Yu frowned and looked at it, and immediately felt something was wrong. The meeting at 3 p.m. is to communicate with Director Lu Xing about the details of the implementation of the plan. As a result, Shen Huai's sudden appearance completely disrupted her rhythm. She actually forgot about the 3 p.m. meeting. Damn it, it's all Shen Huai's fault. Tong Yu glanced at Shen Huai angrily. Wan Dequan, Qi Mingfei, both of you come with me to attend the meeting. Fu Hai and Xinshin, the two of you continue to monitor the background data of each account, especially the new brands signed last month, and don't make any mistakes. Understood. Jiang Xinshin and Fu Hai looked at each other and immediately got into work mode. Fighting is fighting. In terms of workability, any one of Xingyao's people is a capable person who can stand on his own. Team leader Tong, what about me? Shen Huai pointed at himself. You? Tong Yu glanced at Shen Huai, her eyes moved, and she suddenly came up with an idea: go buy each of us a cup of coffee. After saying that, Tong Yu winked at Wan Dequan and the others, then walked out without looking back. Wan Dequan passed by Shen Huai, patted him on the shoulder with a heavy look in his eyes, and then quickly chased after him. Shen Huai stood where he was. His brows furrowed slightly. Buy coffee, these three seemingly simple words, were the first trap Tong Yu set for him. He just said he wanted to buy coffee, but didn't mention the specific number of participants. No one is told what flavor each person likes. It's obvious that he wants to embarrass himself. Squeak. A rustling sound suddenly came from behind. Shen Huai turned around and found it was Jiang Xinshin. Shen Huai, what exactly is the problem between you and team leader Tong? Why is she so dissatisfied with you? Shen Huai smiled awkwardly, even you can see that. If you can't see this, you don't have to work in the public relations department. Jiang Xinshin pushed his black-framed glasses and muttered. Let's not talk about this for now. Do you know how many people are attending this meeting? Shen Huai asked back. Well, let me take a look. Jiang Xinshin opened the list of participants and counted the number of people. Originally there were 8, but now Fu Hai and I have to stay here to monitor the data, so there are 6 in total. 6 people. Apart from the 3 people in Group 2, who are the other 3? Jiang Xinshin looked at the list: Director Lu, Assistant Li, and Team Leader Lin from the Artist Management Department. Artist Management Department. Shen Huai frowned slightly. What was the theme of this meeting? What else could it be? It's the new product launch of Ryan Group. Fu Hai took over the conversation. Lion Group is a leading technology company in China, so the new product launch will naturally attract attention from all parties. We have already started preheating the new product half a year in advance. To put it in a broader sense, as a global smart technology company, Ryan's press conference also represents the face of the country to a certain extent, so there can't be any mistakes. To put it simply, this matter concerns team leader Tong's promotion in the second half of the year, so of course she takes it very seriously. I see. Shen Huai lifted his chin, thinking about something. Then is that team leader Lin from the Artist Management Department that you mentioned also a participant in this press conference? At this press conference, our artists will go on stage to showcase new products. This has already been confirmed. It can be regarded as a way to attract traffic to each other. The details of cooperation with artists naturally need to be discussed with them. Jiang Xinshin explained patiently. Hearing this, Shen Huai nodded thoughtfully. One last question, where is the conference room? It's on the right corner of this floor, room 608. Jiang Xinshin silently raised her fist towards Shen Huai. Come on. Shen Huai smiled and walked out quickly. 10 minutes later, Shen Huai hurried to room 603 with a bag of drinks in his hand. He took a deep breath, quickly adjusted his appearance, and raised his hand to grasp the door handle of room 603. Crack. Hearing the noise at the door, everyone inside looked at Shen Huai in unison. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Tong Yu was the first to react. He lowered his eyes to look at the bag in Shen Huai's hand, raised his eyebrows slightly, and said in a teasing tone, if you are any later, the meeting will be over. Lu Xing looked at Shen Huai, who suddenly broke in, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. She remembered that Shen Huai was not invited to this meeting. What are you doing here? Lu Xing asked calmly. Director Lu, it's like this, haven't I been unable to find a suitable assistant? When I saw him today, I felt that he was very suitable for this position, so I wanted to let him give it a try, Tong Yu explained. Hearing this, Lu Xing looked deeply between Tong Yu and Shen Huai for a moment. I don't know why. When Lu Xing heard Tong Yu asked Shen Huai to be her assistant, she felt a little unhappy. It's like lending something to someone and inexplicably losing ownership of it. This feeling is not strong, but it is long-lasting. It was like an invisible thread, wrapping around my heart several times, and my breathing even became a little short. But he is a skilled worker after all. Although his mind was full of thoughts, Lu Xing remained calm on the surface. It's good for the newcomer to hone his skills. Since the person has been assigned to you, then teach him well. Seeing this, Tong Yu turned her head and looked at Shen Huai. Where's the coffee I asked you to buy? Here it is. Shen Huai apologized to everyone, opened the bag, and began to distribute the items one by one. This is yours, raw coconut latte. Shen Huai handed the latte to Wan Dequan. How do you know I like raw coconut latte? Wan Dequan was very surprised. The raw coconut instant powder at your workstation, so I guess you like it. Shen Huai gave a brief explanation, then took out a bottle of energy drink and handed it to Qi Mingfei. You probably don't like coffee, so here's this. You know all this? Qi Mingfei looked surprised. The trash can at your feet is full of this brand of energy drink, and there's a half-empty bottle on the table. Hearing Shen Huai's words, everyone in the office had a frozen expression. Lu Xing's eyes became more playful. Are there any for me? Of course. Shen Huai nodded and handed Lu Xing a glass of iced Americano. Your iced Americano, with 2 shots of espresso. Lu Xing took the iced American coffee, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and a sweet feeling rose in his heart. I didn't expect that after so many years of breaking up, he still remembered so clearly the detail that I like to drink thick iced American coffee. Tong Yu looked at Lu Xing's expression and her face suddenly turned a little ugly. You won't forget mine, will you? Tong Yu asked indifferently. Here's yours. Shen Huai smiled mysteriously and took out a cup of hot milk from the bag. What are you doing? This is not what I want. Tong Yu looked at the cup of hot milk in front of her with an unhappy expression. Unexpectedly, Shen Huai smiled calmly and reminded him neither lightly nor heavily. Team leader Tong, during this special period, don't joke with your body. Chapter 14. The bottom line of a scumbag. These words shocked everyone. Especially Tong Yu, whose pupils trembled. Lu Xing's naked scrutinizing eyes fell on Tong Yu, and Tong Yu's heart trembled immediately. How did you know that? Tong Yu gritted her teeth and asked, suppressing her anger. Shen Huai smiled and said, the date is circled on the calendar on your desk. It's hard not to see it. The more embarrassed you are, the happier I am. Shen Huai's secret plot naturally did not escape Tong Yu's eyes. She knew that this was Shen Huai's revenge on her. But at this moment, this meeting report is very important to her, and she must not let Shen Huai's trouble affect her performance. Tong Yu took a deep breath, tried her best to calm her expression, and faced Lu Xing's scrutinizing gaze. Her tone calmed down again. There's someone sitting next to Director Lu. Did you buy it for him? Yes, I have already bought it. Shen Huai took out the last cup of coffee from the bag and respectfully handed it to Director Lu, a woman wearing a black mask. Hello, I'm Shen Huai, a new member of the Public Relations Department's planning group. I just started working today. Please give me your guidance. I'm not sure about your taste, Team Leader Lin, but I heard that colleagues in the artist management department pay a lot of attention to body management and strictly control calories, so I took the initiative to buy an iced Americano. If it's not the flavor you like, you can tell me and I can buy it again. After Shen Huai finished speaking, his eyes gently fell on the woman's face. He noticed the woman as soon as he entered the door. Her long, smooth, black hair balanced out the toughness of her black suit. The whole person looks cool and noble. A fine twist necklace is worn on the swan neck with perfect curves. The buttons at the collar were not buttoned, revealing a little bit of whiteness, adding a touch of spring. Even from beginning to end. The black mask on the woman's face covered almost 2/3 of her face. Only a pair of charming eyes are revealed. But judging from her outstanding temperament, she is not inferior to any star on TV. Even if she sits quietly and says nothing, one can still feel the coldness emanating from her that cannot be ignored. While Shen Huai was secretly dealing with Lu Sheng, Tong Yu and others, the woman looked like she was watching a show the whole time, with her arms folded and not saying a word. Shen Huai had a preliminary judgment of this person in 3 words in his heart. Not to be trifled. The woman took the iced Americano and raised her beautiful almond eye slightly. "Thank you." After she finished speaking, she turned her gaze to Tong Yu, smiling. "Team leader Tong is very lucky. Your new assistant is so good at reading people's expressions. You are indeed a very good talent." Upon hearing this, Tong Yu clenched her teeth and her mouth almost became a straight line. This Lin Yiman is always weird. Because of business overlap, their planning team often collaborates with the artist management department. If Tong Yu is a sharp steel knife, Lin Yiman is a thorny whip. Tong Yu is a super straight girl. She never bothers to be smooth and worldly wise and always speaks directly. But Lin Yiman is the opposite. She smiled sweetly, but there was a dagger hidden in her smile, and her words were very cunning. She inadvertently brings others into her logic and controls them completely. It can be described as a gentle knife, but every blow can be fatal. When the two of them were together, they were always at loggerheads and disliked each other. "I have a cold these past 2 days, so I am wearing a mask. Please don't mind." Lin Yiman apologized, her eyes lightly glancing at Shen Huai. Shen Huai's heart tightened for no reason when he was scolded by Lin Yiman. Why does this look seem so familiar? Since you have a cold, team leader Lin should talk less. Tong Yu's face darkened. As the director, Lu Sheng naturally has a clear understanding of the undercurrents in the company. "Shen Huai, you have nothing to do here, so go out first." Lu Sheng glanced at him with her beautiful eyes and gave a seemingly casual order. As long as Shen Huai is here, her attention will always be involuntarily attracted to him. Look at that face. Lu Sheng couldn't help but recall those beautiful scenes in the past. It's really hard to concentrate. Okay. Shen Huai understood what he meant and stood up to go out. Wait a moment. Tong Yu looked at Lu Sheng and suddenly said, "Director, the preparation time for the press conference is tight, and I don't have enough staff. Letting Shen Huai sit in will also help him help me. What do you think?" Hearing this, Lu Sheng couldn't help but frown slightly. But he's just a newcomer. It's probably too fast for you to let him join the project team for this press conference. Faster. Tong Yu looked at Shen Huai meaningfully. I think he is quite confident in himself. Shen Huai, what do you think? Tong Yu calmly turned the topic to herself. But Lu Sheng wanted to say something, but Lin Yiman beside him chuckled and said, "Director Lu, I don't think this is a bad thing. Just because he did such a small thing as buying coffee so flawlessly, I think this newcomer is extraordinary. If Shen Huai really gets into trouble and team leader Tong dislikes him, he can transfer to our artist management department. We welcome him at any time." Lin Yiman's gaze fell gently on Shen Huai, with a hint of deep meaning at the corners of her eyes. Tong Yu's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot as he openly poached people in front of her. "All right, both of you, stop it." Lu Sheng rubbed his temples with a headache. "Since they all asked you to stay, then you should stay." Shen Huai's heart, which had been hanging in the air, was now completely gone. He broke out in sweat at the thought of staying in the room with Lu Sheng and Tong Yu for a whole afternoon. Although Shen Huai never stopped changing girlfriends. But he has an absolute bottom line. That is, girlfriends must never know each other. It's like when you change clothes, you must not be stained by the previous person's scent. Otherwise it will definitely cause a lot of trouble. Shen Huai glanced quietly at Tong Yu beside him and Lu Sheng opposite him. Fortunately, It seems that these two people did not know that they once had a common identity. Of course, they must not be told about this. Otherwise, I'm afraid my life will be in danger. Shen Huai sat down next to Wan Dequan with a dead heart. Tong Yu walked onto the stage and began her report. Shen Huai was listening intermittently, when he suddenly felt a scorching gaze coming from the opposite side and looked up abruptly. Lin Yiman was looking at him jokingly, her charming eyes seemed to see through him. Shen Huai felt a little nervous when he was stared at. Why is this woman staring at me? Shen Huai admitted that he was extremely handsome. But this team leader Lin is so blatant. Shen Huai coughed lightly with some embarrassment, then turned his whole body to the side. Force yourself to ignore that gaze. Looking at Shen Huai's awkward posture, Lin Yiman couldn't help but laugh out loud. Team leader Lin, what are you laughing at? Is my plan so funny? Tong Yu finally couldn't help it. She is not blind. She had been standing on the stage and speaking for a long time, but Lin Yiman didn't look at her the whole time. Instead, she kept staring at Shen Huai. Shen Huai is her assistant, why is she staring at him? Hearing this, Lin Yiman looked at Tong Yu with a slightly provocative look, still smiling on the surface. Why are you so sensitive, team leader Tong? Are you so unconfident about your own plan? Tong Yu was furious. I think you are trying to turn the tables. Don't think I don't know your little tricks. Your artist management department wants to poach handsome men and beautiful women whenever you see them. You stared at Shen Huai for so long, your thoughts were written all over your face. Hearing this, Lu Xing sat in the middle, propping up his cheek with one hand, looking at him with a sad look. Yiman, are you interested in Shen Huai? As soon as these words came out, Shen Huai's hand, which was taking notes, suddenly trembled. A trace of shock appeared on his calm face. Chapter 15 Underground Lover. He raised his head and looked at the masked woman in shock. Just now Lu Xing called her Yiman. Team leader Lin, his surname is Lin. Yiman. Lin Yiman. Grass. Grass. Lin Yiman. Is it Lin Yiman, the most legendary student union president of Xingyao University of Science and Technology, who was 3 years older than him and went to the same school as him? Could it be the same name? Or is it just the same sound? Looking at Shen Huai's self-doubting and flustered expression, Lin Yiman's smile deepened. In full view of the public, she gently took off her mask. Looking at the extremely familiar face in front of me, the last bit of hope in Shen Huai's heart was completely shattered. It turns out, it's really her. No one would be indifferent to a handsome guy, especially such a handsome guy, don't you think, Shen Huai? Lin Yiman raised her hand, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and looked at Shen Huai with a smile. Now. Shen Huai just felt his breathing tighten. Oh my god, you are playing a huge joke on me. 3 ex-girlfriends gathered in a conference room. Is there any surer field in the world more terrifying than this? If Su Meng was the girl who allowed Shen Huai to taste the forbidden fruit for the first time, Lin Yiman was the teacher who helped him transform from a theoretical king into a practical master. Lin Yiman is the kind of good student that all teachers and parents like. She is well behaved and sensible. She is friendly to everyone and smiles in a harmless way. Only Shen Huai knows what kind of sex maniac is hidden in Lin Yiman's heart. During the day, the student union president stood on the stage and gave a passionate speech to all the teachers and students. At night, he always liked to drag Shen Huai to the small hill behind the school to play games. Looking at the face sitting on it, full of lust, it was difficult for Shen Huai to connect her with her serious appearance during the day. From the first day Lin Yiman and Shen Huai were together, she told Shen Huai that she did not want to make their relationship public. Shen Huai thought that it was inconvenient for her because of her position as the student union president, so he agreed without thinking too much. It wasn't until many years later that Shen Huai realized what was going on. From the very beginning, Lin Yiman had no intention of admitting her relationship with Shen Huai. Or say, from the very beginning, Lin Yiman was attracted by Shen Huai's strong body rather than Shen Huai himself. Even their breakup. It was after they had a great time that Lin Yiman was lying in his arms. The past cannot be retrieved. Shen Huai shook his head, forcing himself to pull himself away from those past erotic scenes. How come this ancestor is also in this company? Looking at Shen Huai's face turning pale and blue, Lin Yiman knew that he finally recognized her. The evil prank was successful and a smile appeared on Lin Yiman's lips. Okay, team leader Tong, let's get back to business. Lin Yiman simply stopped pretending and got straight to the point. None of the artists mentioned in your proposal have schedules during the press conference. Not even one. How is that possible? Lin Yiman, are you doing this on purpose? I think you did it on purpose. Lin Yiman retorted mercilessly, which of the people you mentioned in your proposal is not a top-tier company? Moreover, the endorsements of several of them are actually competing products with the products of the Ryan Group. As someone in the PR department, you don't have this much vigilance. This shouldn't be the case. Lin Yiman laughed and teased, leaving Tong Yu speechless. But, even though I don't have any first-tier artists, I can give you some newcomers. Newcomer? How can a newcomer be so popular? You are clearly bullying me. Tong Yu gnashed her teeth in hatred. Lin Yiman tapped her fingertips lightly, ignoring Tong Yu, and looked at Lu Xing gently. Director Lu, take a look at this first. After saying that, she took out her cell phone and clicked on a video. Lu Xing took the phone and looked at it in silence. As he watched, his brows furrowed more and more. The video is only a dozen seconds long, but the content is quite explosive. Although the video is blurry and shaky. But it can still be seen that the video was taken on a film set. I saw a middle-aged woman in a costume, arrogantly yelling at another girl. The other girl, also wearing a costume, was servile and submissive. Then, the middle-aged woman suddenly raised her hand and slapped the girl's face several times. Even though the video was noisy, the sound was still earth-shattering. At the end of the scene, it shows the staff rushing forward. The entire video is not very clear and the faces of the two girls do not look very real. After Lu Xing finished watching it, Lin Yiman handed the video to everyone present equally. After everyone had finished reading, Lu Xing narrowed his eyes meaningfully. What does team leader Lin mean by this? Lin Yiman put away her phone and said with a smile, I'm sure everyone is familiar with the actress who beat people up. She is a leading figure in the entertainment industry, Yang Shuhua, Sister Yang. As for the one who was beaten, he is a newcomer who was just signed by our company not long ago. Lin Yiman nodded lightly, and Shen Huai instantly understood her intention. What level of person is Yang Shuhua? A national-level actor, well known to everyone. Yang Shuhua has always been an independent and sober heroine. As soon as this video was released. Regardless of whether it is true or not, this amount of discussion is definitely at the level of a deep-sea bomb. This Lin Yiman really has a good plan. She clearly wanted to use this video of workplace bullying to hype up the popularity of this newcomer. Then use Ryan's press conference as an excuse to raise the status of the newcomers. Team leader Lin is really good at using other people's places to sell his own goods. Tong Yu said sarcastically. Thank you for the compliment. Lin Yiman smiled and replied, we are all in this circle, why are we so formal? Isn't status something that is achieved through promotion? As long as it's brought out, who cares about the process? Right, Director Lu. And by then, public opinion will inevitably lean towards the weak. If she appears at Ryan's press conference as a brand ambassador, wouldn't this wave of traffic be equivalent to giving it to Ryan? Lin Yiman's voice was extremely seductive, and she winked at Shen Huai after she finished speaking. Moment. Shen Huai felt that he was in dire straits. It's so hot and unbearable, damn it. Lu Xing rubbed the knuckles of his little finger and thought seriously for a moment. Team leader Lin, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. Director Lu, if you want to get high returns, you have to bear high risks. Lin Yiman's aura is no less than Lu Xing's. Hearing this, Lu Xing fell silent again. Although she is affiliated with the Public Relations Department, she should fight for the interests of Tong Yu to the Artist Management Department. But what Lin Yiman said does make some sense. In the workplace, don't care about the process, only the results matter. If it is really as Lin Yiman said. Inviting a person who is at the center of public opinion is indeed much more eye-catching than simply inviting some artists to perform on stage. Think about it. Lu Xing paused and said in a deep voice, since team leader Lin already has an idea in mind, I will just wait for the result. Tong Yu, please contact team leader Lin after the meeting regarding the press releases that require the artists to cooperate with, as well as specific matters such as controlling public opinion. No need to bother. Lin Yiman raised her finger and pointed at Shen Huai, let him come to me. Chapter 16 Lin Yiman's identity. Everyone was stunned. Shen Huai looked at Lin Yiman's finger pointing at him, and thought to himself that something was wrong. As expected, Tong Yu immediately slammed the table and stood up, her face full of gritted teeth. Lu Xing also looked a little unhappy, and couldn't help but remind him, "Team leader Lin, I must remind you that Tong Yu is the leader of Team 2. So what? Team leader Tong and I have different auras. Director Lu, you can't have failed to see that." Lin Yiman folded her arms and played her cards straight out. Tong Yu was furious. "Lin Yiman, you are such a slut." Lu Xing immediately glared at him with sharp eyes. Tong Yu pursed her lips and snorted coldly, then swallowed the word goods reluctantly. "Today is Shen Huai's first day at work, so he may not be able to help you with anything." Lu Xing tried his best to remain calm on the surface. "If you can't help, just learn. He's so handsome and looks smart." Lin Yiman glanced around with a charming look, and raised her eyes. "Director Lu, you know in our industry that men and women need to work together so that work is not tiring." Lu Xing wanted to say something, but saw Lin Yiman suddenly stand up and put on the mask again. "I have also listened to Team Leader Tong's proposal and put forward my opinions." Lin Yiman picked up the computer and walked out the door with a swaying figure. "If you agree with my plan, then let Shen Huai come to my office to find me." When she reached the door, Lin Yiman did not forget to throw a wink at Shen Huai. "Shen Huai, I'll be waiting for you in the office." The door to the conference room closed quietly. Tong Yu's defense was completely broken. "Boss, she is clearly blatantly challenging our public relations department." Tong Yu was furious and slammed the plan onto the table. "Do you think I'm blind?" "Of course I know," Lu Xing said in a cold voice with a gloomy face. Lu Xing lowered his eyelashes and frowned in thought. The two of them are like two balloons that may explode at any time. Shen Huai sat in the middle as if walking on thin ice, not even daring to breathe. He knew it very well. Lin Yiman came here just for him. When they were dating, she had played him around in circles. Her mind was so fickle that it was impossible to figure her out. Now, in front of so many people, I have to be the contact person, which is definitely not a good thing. But today is only my first day at work and my influence is not very important. Seeing Lin Yiman's arrogant look at the meeting, she didn't even give herself a chance to say no. And looking at Lu Xing's conflicted look, Shen Huai couldn't help but frown. No matter how arrogant Lin Yiman is, he is just a team leader, right? Logically speaking, he is at the same position as Tong Yu. But looking at her behavior just now, it seemed that she didn't even take Lu Xing seriously. "You know, Lu Xing is the director of the public relations department. Could it be that Lin Yiman has a special identity? Someone with connections?" Still, before Shen Huai could figure it out. After being silent for a long time, Lu Xing raised his head again, his eyes fell on Shen Huai, and finally spoke. "Shen Huai, since team leader Lin trusts you so much, then you will be responsible for this handover. Tong Yu, although Lin Yiman specifically asked Shen Huai to be the liaison, you also have to provide assistance. This press conference is very important and there can be no mistakes. Do you understand?" Tong Yu gritted her teeth and glared at Shen Huai with disdain. "Why? You want me to help Shen Huai? I don't accept it." "Tong Yu." Lu Xing frowned and raised his voice. "New." Tong Yu lowered her eyes sadly and snorted reluctantly. "The meeting is over." Tong Yu was the first to rush out of the meeting room. Ignoring everyone, a man walked angrily towards the Group 2 office. The clattering footsteps were angry and impatient, filled with rage. Shen Huai, Wan Dequan and Chi Mingfei walked behind with sad faces. "Shen Huai, this time you've really become a rat in a bellows, and you have to suffer from both sides." Wan Dequan cast a sympathetic look at Shen Huai. "Lin Yiman and our team leader are well known to be incompatible. Even the boss can't do anything about it." Hearing this, Shen Huai said helplessly, "I have a question." "You say? Isn't this Lin Yiman the team leader of the artist management department? How dare she be so bold as to challenge Director Lu openly?" Hearing this, Chi Mingfei hurried forward and covered Shen Huai's mouth with his hand. "Can you please keep your voice down? Don't you know this? It's only my first day at work, it's normal for me not to know." Shen Huai opened Chi Mingfei's hand and frowned. "Oh, yes." Chi Mingfei shook his hands and explained, "How should I put it? Simply put, the artist management department is the place that manages artists. So, what do you think an artist is? Shen Huai, what is it? Of course it's a cash cow. Wan Dequan took over the conversation and raised his eyebrows. Since it's a cash cow, of course we have to hold it in high esteem. As the most profitable department in Xingyao, Lin Yiman has the sharpest eye for signings in the most profitable department, and she has signed the most first-line artists. In the workplace, naturally whoever can make more money is more powerful. So let alone Director Lu, even the chairman of Xingyao would be wary of her when he sees her, Wan Dequan added. Hearing this, Shen Huai was a little surprised. I didn't expect that Lin Yiman would have such a big influence in Xingyao. It seems that I underestimated her just now. If you are so capable, why are you still a team leader? Shen Huai was puzzled. I heard that she did it voluntarily. Wan Dequan put his arm around Shen Huai's shoulders and whispered in his ear, I heard from others that she was qualified to be a director, but she thought it was too tiring to manage people and it was easier to train artists, so she refused. Rejected promotion. Shen Huai was very shocked. Nowadays, there are still people who actively refuse promotions in the workplace. If it were someone else, he might still think that this person had his own difficulties. But when this happened to Lin Yiman, it was really weird. That's right. Chi Mingfei nodded. I don't know what team leader Lin is up to. And I heard that she refused not just once, but several times. Hearing this, Shen Huai became even more silent. The three of them quickly returned to the Group 2 office. As soon as I stepped into the office, I could feel the cold atmosphere of the office. Tong Yue's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and her eyes shot sharply towards the door. What are you doing back there for so long? Why don't you come in? Wan Dequan and Chi Mingfei exchanged glances and quickly and unisonly moved away from Shen Huai. He was afraid that Tong Yue's anger would affect him. Shen Huai knew that he was in his current situation. If he stretched his neck, he would be stabbed. If he shrunk his neck, he would also be stabbed. So he just faced it calmly. Anyway, I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm not afraid of ghosts knocking on my door. Oh no, I'm not afraid of my ex-girlfriend knocking on the door. Shen Huai, did you know Lin Yiman before? Tong Yu's gaze fell straight on Shen Huai, and her scrutinizing eyes seemed to see through him. Shen Huai swallowed, still thinking about how to argue. Unexpectedly, Tong Yu followed up with another sentence, I don't think you can handle her. I thank you. Tong Yu clenched her right fist and pounded the table angrily, when you go to that place of bitch Lin later, turn on the recording for me. She is a person who often says half the story and hides the other half. Remember to record everything she says and send it to me. Do you understand? When Shen Huai heard this, he felt his temples throbbing. Team leader Tong, this is not good, right? Not good. Why, you're protecting me right now. Tong Yu raised her eyebrows and interrogated me, don't forget, you're still in the probation period. The corner of Shen Huai's mouth twitched. Who taught her to solve problems this way? Okay, I'll do as you say. Shen Huai gritted his teeth and accepted it helplessly. The four people in Group 2 looked at Shen Huai tragically. It's like looking at a warrior who is about to disappear forever. When he reached the door, Shen Huai suddenly paused, turned around and smiled at Tong Yu, just don't get angry no matter what team leader Tong hears. Chapter 17 I like this angle. Xingyao Media 11th to 15th floors. A total of 5 floors belong to the artist management department. When Shen Huai came out of the elevator on the 11th floor, he was attracted by the familiar artist posters on both sides of the corridor. Every face on this wall is so familiar. They are all artists who are active in major TV dramas, movies, and variety shows every day. Pick any one of them out, and they are all heavyweights. In Wan Dequan's words, everything posted on this wall is Xingyao's money tree. Shen Huai couldn't help but sigh. Otherwise, how could Xingyao become the most prestigious agency and media company in the entertainment industry? Those small companies have to give their all and take advantage of the right time, place and people to cultivate a few artists with a little fame. However, the top stars in Xingyao's hands occupy half of the entertainment industry. There are even more first-tier and second-tier cities. When the other party plays three of a kind, Xingyao just raises his hand and uses the king bomb. It's not for any other reason, it's just that there are too many king bombs. The Xingyao family has almost drained all the traffic resources in the entertainment industry. How can others play this? Walk and look. Before he knew it, Shen Huai arrived at Lin Yiman's territory. It is different from the public relations department, where each group has a glass room. The office space of the artist management department is obviously much more upscale. Although Lin Yiman is the team leader, she has her own office just like Lu Sheng. Shen Huai stood in front of the door with a label that read, Head of Group 2 of the Artist Management Department. After pondering for a while, he quietly turned on the recording function on his mobile phone and then knocked on the office door. Enter. Lin Yiman's voice is extremely gentle and charming. Shen Huai entered the office and found there was another girl in the office. When Lin Yiman saw Shen Huai, there was no surprise in her eyes. Instead, she smiled and raised her chin to the girl. You go down first, go and calm the artist down, I have something else to deal with now. The girl turned her head and glanced at Shen Huai, then lowered her head and whispered, Sister Man, you go ahead and do your work. I'll let you know if there's anything going on. Yeah. Lin Yiman nodded casually. The girl left quickly. Soon, Lin Yiman and Shen Huai were the only ones left in the office. Well, I'm here on behalf of Team Leader Tong to discuss work with you, Team Leader Lin. Shen Huai said dryly. Now. He just wanted to end the battle quickly and escape from this wolf's den. Docking? How do you want to dock? Lin Yiman smiled and lifted her hair behind her shoulders, looking at Shen Huai with burning eyes. This look is like one coveting a prey. Shen Huai just felt a headache. He just knew it. As long as Lin Yiman was in front of him, he could never say 3 serious words. Team Leader Lin, this is the office. Shen Huai felt that he had given a clear enough reminder. This is the office. No matter how shameless you are, you wouldn't do anything here. But obviously, he underestimated Lin Yiman's ambition. After hearing these words, Lin Yiman not only did not restrain herself, but her eyes flashed with more excitement. Outside the office, there is noisy and bustling office sounds. Inside the office, an ambiguous atmosphere was rapidly growing. Lin Yiman glanced at Shen Huai very briskly, then stepped lightly on her high heels and walked towards Shen Huai gracefully. Shen Huai's Adam's apple rolled and he couldn't help but take a step back. Lin Yiman smiled without stopping her movements. The office is just this small. You advance and I retreat, and Shen Huai was soon forced onto the sofa with no way to retreat. Lin Yiman raised her slender hand, and just as it was about to touch Shen Huai's cheek, she suddenly laughed out loud. Why are you still so well behaved? Shen Huai fell back on the sofa. Lin Yiman supported herself on Shen Huai with both hands, and the two were only separated by 2 thin layers of cloth. The thick black hair gently brushed Shen Huai's cheek, which made Shen Huai feel itchy in his heart. His tense body was reflected in those seductive dark brown eyes. Are you free tonight? No. Shen Huai shook his head subconsciously without even thinking about it. Which day are you free? I'm not free any day. Lin Yiman's eyes froze for a moment, then a faint smile appeared on her face again. She leaned on Shen Huai and lowered her head even more. Are you avoiding me? It doesn't matter. We'll have plenty of time to meet in the future. Lin Yiman picked up Shen Huai. Immediately afterwards, a soft body fell lightly into Shen Huai's arms. The charming red lips pressed tightly against Shen Huai's ear. Let's talk like this, I like this angle better. Now. There were 1,000 crows flying through Shen Huai's heart. What on earth does Lin Yiman want to do? Is this the right posture for talking about serious matters? However, Lin Yiman didn't notice anything. Ignoring Shen Huai's dark face, he actually started talking about serious matters in this outrageous manner. Since you can come, it means that Team Leader Tong has also agreed to my plan, so this matter will be simple. What's their simple method? Team Leader Lin, why don't you just tell me directly? Holding such a ball of fire in his arms, Shen Huai clenched his teeth and tried his best to keep his breathing steady. Lin Yiman hooked Shen Huai's chin and said calmly, You also saw that girl just now. She is the executive agent I assigned to that newcomer. This video was shot by one of our people. What your PR department needs to do is to suppress the other party's power and use the public's natural tendency to sympathize with the weak to portray her as a perfect victim. It seems that Team Leader Lin has already thought about it. Lin Yiman chuckled, When you make a move in chess, you naturally need to know the next 10 steps in advance, otherwise it's like a blind man crossing a river. Shen Huai took a deep breath. The timeliness of public opinion is roughly 7 days. The press conference is half a month later. It would be difficult for a workplace bullying video to maintain its popularity for half a month. Is this a small matter? Is it difficult for your public relations department to handle it? Lin Yiman chuckled and said, "Don't be fooled by your team leader Tong's cold face. She is a master of public opinion. She is an expert at the double reversal tactic. Since team leader Lin has thought it through so clearly, why didn't he just let team leader Tong take charge at the meeting, but instead specifically named me to do this?" Shen Huai frowned slightly. "Didn't I tell you that when men and women work together, their work won't be tiring? Although your team leader Tong is an expert at manipulating public opinion, he is not very good at dealing with people. He can control public opinion, but he cannot handle artists." "Artist?" Shen Huai was slightly stunned. "That's right. How high we can push her this time depends on how well this newcomer can cooperate." Lin Yiman suppressed her smile and said in a serious tone, "Come to think of it, this artist is from the same school as you. Your task this time is to cooperate well with her." "Same school?" Shen Huai was a little surprised. Anyone who is noticed and signed by Xingyao must have an appearance score of more than 9. Shen Huai might miss the class time, but he would never miss every beauty in the school. He knew all the beautiful girls in their school, their names, colleges, and interests. There are only a handful of people whose appearance can be rated above 9 points. Someone who can still be noticed by Xingyao. That is even rarer. Is it possible? A vague answer has just emerged. Lin Yiman then opened her red lips and gave the answer directly. "Yes, her name is Li Shenran. I heard she is the school beauty of your class. Do you know him?" Chapter 18. It's okay, just eat it. The 3 words, Li Shenran. It was like a bolt of thunder out of the blue, causing Shen Huai's body to freeze. "I'm so pissed. Did Shen Huai violate some heavenly law? Why are all these ex-girlfriends like the Calabash brothers, coming to me one after another? This is only the first day at work. The plot is too outrageous. I can see that Shen Huai's face looks wrong." Lin Yiman narrowed her eyes with experience and said quietly, "TSK, do you really know him? You said you were the school belle, so of course I know." Shen Huai's eyes were evasive. Lin Yiman's eyes were too bewitching. "Just a little bit." Shen Huai was about to reveal the fact that Li Shenran was his ex-girlfriend. But when the words were on the tip of my tongue, I suddenly remembered what Li Shenran had said about the confidentiality agreement. At least we were in love. He also didn't want to put others in an awkward situation because of his quick words after the breakup. The words stuck in my throat were swallowed down. It's better to pretend not to know him. Hearing Shen Huai's answer, Lin Yiman said, "Huh, in doubt." There was no extra information revealed from Shen Huai's expression. Lin Yiman withdrew her scrutinizing gaze and continued, "Since we know each other, that's even better." After saying this, she suddenly raised her slender waist and reached down like a snake. Shen Huai just felt dry mouth. Suddenly, Shen Huai suddenly felt something move in his trouser pocket. Lin Yiman raised Shen Huai's phone high with her red lips slightly curled and her beautiful eyes smiling, then flipped the screen and quickly aimed it at Shen Huai's face. Ka. It's the sound of a cell phone unlocking. Lin Yiman. Shen Huai was pressed under him and was a little angry. The next moment, Lin Yiman casually threw the phone back onto Shen Huai's chest. "How dare you delete me, you have no conscience. I've added you back. I'll send you Li Shenran's executive agent's WeChat in a bit. I'll tell her the specific details, and you can just contact her." Shen Huai picked up his phone and found that there was indeed an additional, through friend, notification on WeChat. "Okay, now that we've finished talking about business, it's time for us to talk about personal matters." Lin Yiman pressed Shen Huai's chest with one hand and looked down at him condescendingly. "I have to say, Lin Yiman is really very charming. Not a mixed race, but looks like one. Heavy makeup is full of charm, while light makeup is pure and sexy. Especially in this posture at this moment. What if some blind employee suddenly breaks in?" Shen Huai wasn't sure whether Lin Yiman's reputation would be ruined. But Shen Huai is absolutely and completely finished. "What private matters do you want to talk about?" Shen Huai felt a little uncomfortable being looked at by Lin Yiman from this angle. "We broke up a long time ago." "Yes." Lin Yiman smiled wickedly, "So, it's time to get back together." "Lin Yiman, can you be serious?" Shen Huai couldn't stand it anymore. "So what if we get back together, will you make our relationship public?" "Well, of course not." Lin Yiman was honest. "That's it." Shen Huai said unhappily, "What I want is an open and honest relationship. We have different values. You just want to have fun, but I am serious about every relationship. After saying that, Shen Huai suddenly felt a little guilty, so he coughed a few times awkwardly and said, "Anyway, we have broken up for a long time, so don't always do such things without a sense of boundaries." Oh. A hint of darkness flashed across Lin Yiman's dark brown eyes. The white fingers gently stroked Shen Huai's cheek, and he exerted force on his waist. She stood up and moved away from Shen Huai. "After not seeing you for a few years, you have become more eloquent. But what I like most is conquest. It would be meaningless if it was easily conquered." Lin Yiman walked back to her desk frivolously, sat on the chair, and looked at Shen Huai with affectionate eyes. "We will be colleagues from now on. There are still many opportunities. I am not in a hurry." Shen Huai sighed inwardly. "Haven't seen you for a few years." Lin Yiman is really becoming more and more straightforward. "Well, since team leader Lin has finished his instructions, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first." Shen Huai stumbled, wanting to escape as soon as possible. "Wait a moment." As soon as I turned around, Lin Yiman's voice behind me suddenly became a few degrees higher. "Take these things with you on the way. They will be considered as gifts from me to your planning team." Shen Huai turned around and saw Lin Yiman raising her chin towards a corner. Following Lin Yiman's gaze, Shen Huai found 2 cardboard boxes in the corner, which when stacked together were nearly half a person's height. He walked over and tried to pick up the box. It was quite heavy. The moment the box left the ground, a rustling sound came from inside, as if countless small particles were colliding with each other in the dense space. "Team leader Lin, what are these things?" "Goji berry," Lin Yiman said calmly. Shen Huai's hand holding the box almost slipped. "Team leader Lin, your kindness is too generous. There are only 6 people in our second team. Isn't this just right?" Lin Yiman smiled slightly and said, "After we divide the rest, you can keep it for yourself. Eat it as a meal to replenish your body." When Shen Huai returned to the planning group on the 6th floor from the 11th floor, holding his breath, carrying 2 large boxes, everyone's expression was one of shock. Tong Yu, in particular, was even more confused when she saw the heavy thing in Shen Huai's hand. "Isn't this a handover? What is this?" Shen Huai took a deep breath, put the box heavily on the ground, and tried to keep his tone calm. "This is a gift from team leader Lin to the planning team." "Humph, the weasel is wishing a happy new year to the chicken. I'm afraid he knows he's in the wrong, and he came up with this despicable way to make up for it. How childish." Tong Yu looked at the 2 boxes of wolfberries on the ground with complete disdain. Immediately following, her eyes flashed and focused on Shen Huai again. "Where are the other things? Something else?" Shen Huai was stunned for a moment, then reacted instantly. She was referring to the recording on her phone. In an instant, Shen Huai just felt a chill on his spine. The conversation he had just had with Lin Yiman was simply shameful. Especially after we started talking about personal matters. Lin Yiman's boldness in speaking far exceeded Shen Huai's expectations. If this were handed over to Tong Yu, I'm afraid I'll be fired tomorrow just because I step into the company with my left foot. What's wrong? Didn't you record it? Tong Yu noticed something was wrong and snatched Shen Huai's phone without saying a word. "Hey, wait a minute." Shen Huai was so angry that his head hurt. Why do these 2 like to snatch cell phones when they have a disagreement? When he is heir? Tong Yu turned around quickly, making Shen Huai's outstretched hand fall empty. Looking at the lock screen password, she pondered for a moment, then quickly pressed the code with her deft fingers. Ka. The screen unlocked. Shen Huai was stunned. For convenience, whether it is a computer, tablet or mobile phone, all his screensaver passwords are his birthday, 021228. Unexpectedly, it was this habit that allowed Tong Yu to take advantage of it. A triumphant smile flashed across Tong Yu's eyes, and she quickly entered the recording software. Inside was a reminder of the latest recording completion. "Tong Yu, give me back my phone." Shen Huai took a deep breath and his face darkened. His eyes became more serious than ever before, even with a hint of anger. Tong Yu looked at Shen Huai and felt guilty for no reason. But if he just gave up his momentum in front of everyone, wouldn't that be admitting defeat? There was a flash of panic in Tong Yu's eyes. Facing Shen Huai's angry gaze, Tong Yu not only refused to listen to the advice, but instead raised her mobile phone high and pressed the record and play button in front of everyone. Moment. Waves of soft and boneless voices echoed in the office without reservation. Chapter 19, Large-Scale Social Death Scene. Docking? How do you want to dock? Team leader Lin, this is an office. Are you free tonight? I like this angle. Now that we have finished talking about business, it's time for us to talk about personal matters. The recording stopped abruptly after playing this sentence. Moment. The office was eerily quiet. Fu Hai, Wan Dequan, Chi Mingfei and Jiang Xinshin were completely stunned. What kind of restricted conversation is this? Can they listen to these dirty talk without paying? Shen Huai secretly wiped the sweat off his forehead. All the explicit words that Lin Yiman said later were coincidentally and, luckily, not recorded. It must have been when Lin Yiman snatched his cell phone. I realized that I was secretly recording, so I turned it off silently. It was an unintentional act, but it saved his life. However, the little happiness in my heart only flashed by and disappeared in an instant. Because Shen Huai found that Tong Yu's face was so dark that water could drip out of it. She still kept holding her phone high. However, his chest was heaving violently and his face was flushed from his neck to behind his ears. His eyes were fixed on Shen Huai. If anger could be materialized, Shen Huai would have been burned into relics by now. Shen Huai, what did you and her do in the office? Tong Yu questioned word by word, gritting her teeth. Now. A fire was boiling inside her chest and she felt like it was about to explode. If the words in the recording itself are enough to make people imagine. So beyond words. The sound of fabric rubbing against each other. That low gasp. It makes people fantasize. There is definitely something wrong with Shen Huai and Lin Yiman. Tong Yuahong's eyes narrowed and her breathing became visibly faster. She felt that the string-cold reason in her mind was about to break. Shen Huai was sweating profusely. Team leader Tong, it's not what you think. We are really just talking about work. Oh, let's talk about work. Tong Yu sneered. When we talk about work, we would ask, are you free tonight? When talking about work, would you say, I like this angle? Why is there a sound of clothes rubbing against each other when we are talking about work? Facing Tong Yu's thunderous questioning. In a trance. Shen Huai suddenly felt like he was back to a few years ago, when he was in love with Tong Yu and felt suffocated. At that time, she seemed to be so arrogant, holding some inexplicable things to question herself. Only. She used to be his girlfriend. And now Tong Yu is just his boss. Why do you speak to him in such a tone? Think of this. Shen Huai couldn't help but straighten his back. If Tong Yu cannot change her subconscious possessive habits, Shen Huai doesn't mind helping her face reality. Team leader Tong, I'm here to work, not to be tortured. There's no need for me to accept your interrogation. Shen Huai frowned and snatched the phone that Tong Yu was holding high. I am your subordinate, not your lover. Shen Huai's words choked Tong Yu so much that her face turned pale. She hadn't expected it at all. Shen Huai actually made her lose face in front of so many people. Looking at Tong Yu's incredulous expression, Shen Huai took a deep breath and spoke again. Team leader Tong, don't you think what you just said crossed the line? Crossed the line. He said he had crossed a line. Tong Yu moved her lips and suddenly felt weak in her limbs. The mouth that had always been eloquent had become so clumsy. Shen Huai's words were like a bucket of cold water, which finally woke Tong Yu up. The sanity that had almost gone out of control finally returned. Tong Yu closed her eyes tightly, the scene that had just happened kept replaying in her mind. What did she do? He snatched his subordinate's mobile phone, unlocked it without permission, and played the recording publicly without any explanation. The words she said. There is jealousy between the lines. Tong Yu, who behaved like this, was simply a stranger to herself. Under normal circumstances, she would never do such extreme behavior. But why? Why did I lose control of my emotions when I heard what Lin Yiman said? Could it be? Do I still care about Shen Huai? No, it's not possible. Absolutely impossible. As soon as the thought came to mind, it was immediately extinguished by Tong Yu. We have been apart for so long, where is the love? It must be because Shen Huai's appearance was too sudden that she lost her composure. Yes, that must be it. Tong Yu took a deep breath, and then slowly opened her tightly closed eyes again. You're right. I'm just your boss. How you play with others is none of my business. Tong Yu gritted her teeth and tried her best to keep her tone steady, I'm just reminding you that the press conference is not only related to my promotion, but also to the entire planning team. Don't mess around and let our entire team suffer. Lin Yiman has always had two faces. Haven't you heard that lust is like a sword hanging over your head? Be careful not to get yourself slashed by it. Tong Yu reminded sarcastically. Shen Huai lowered his eyes and replied calmly, "Thank you for the reminder, team leader Tong." Tong Yu rolled her eyes at Shen Huai, then looked at the two boxes of wolfberries on the ground, feeling furious again. His eyes rolled and a plan came to his mind. She curled her lips and waved to Wan Dequan. Wan Dequan, Chi Mingfei, the two of you take this box of wolfberries and give some to each male colleague in the public relations department. Sayed was invited by team leader Lin. What about the other box? The other box is naturally for assistant Shen to use alone. Tong Yu snorted coldly. After all, he will have to work with the people in the artist management department in person in the future, which is bound to be hard work. Facing Tong Yu's blatant ridicule, Shen Huai didn't care at all. Instead, he opened the box, grabbed a handful of wolfberries, and stuffed them into his mouth in front of Tong Yu. Well, it tastes really good. I think team leader Tong's blood is too strong and he really doesn't need to be replenished. Thank you very much. You. Tong Yu was so angry that her mouth was crooked. The situation was tense. Two messages suddenly popped up on Shen Huai's phone. It's Lin Yiman. She pushed two WeChat business cards over. One is Li Shenran's executive agent Yu Xiang. As for the other one, looking at that familiar profile picture, Shen Huai just felt absurd in his heart. It feels like this world is just a huge makeshift team. People who just deleted each other a week ago. Before I knew it, I had to add it back in this way. For a while. Shen Huai hasn't thought of a good excuse yet. So he simply ignored Li Shenran's WeChat and selectively only added executive agent Yu Xiang as a friend. Friends passed quickly. Before Shen Huai could say hello, someone quickly sent a hello emoticon. Yu Xiang, are you the person who entered Sister Man's office today? Shen Huai frowned for a long time, raised his hand and replied with two words, yes. Yu Xiang, they said the new person who joined the PR department today is you. The tone sounded a little strange. Shen Huai hesitated for a long time before responding, that's right. After I sent the message, there was silence on the other end. Shen Huai looked at the words typing that kept flashing and disappearing in the chat window, his brows furrowed more and more. I don't know why. There was always a vague sense of uneasiness in his heart, and it was constantly growing. The next moment. In the company's general group, Artist Management Department Group 2 Executive Agent Yu Xiang suddenly went viral in the group. Sisters. I saw him in person. He is so handsome that it is unbelievable. Chapter 20 Public Execution. The corner of Shen Huai's mouth twitched. The next moment, he felt the naked gazes of the crowd, all looking at her. Before Yu Xiang realized that she had joined the wrong group, messages kept ringing. Sister Man asked him to meet me, and I almost fainted on the spot. God, I have no resistance to this one. Military advisors, hurry up. How should I respond to him? Waiting online. Looking at the message sent by Yu Xiang, Shen Huai's habit of embarrassing others came back again. He quickly sent a message to Yu Xiang, sweating profusely, with his fingers flying, reminding her, you sent it to the company group. Send out instantly. There was a sudden silence as quiet as a chicken. Even through the screen, Shen Huai could feel Yu Xiang's screams of collapse. Artist Management Department Group 2 Executive Agent Yu Xiang withdrew a message. Artist Management Department Group 2 Executive Agent Yu Xiang withdrew a message. Artist Management Department Group 2 Executive Agent Yu Xiang withdrew a message. What a pity. It's too late. There are more than 10,000 people in the group. The message Yu Xiang sent by mistake had already been captured and saved by the onlookers, and even quickly made into a mocking emoticon package. As a media company, its ability to stir things up is first class. Oh my god, I have no resistance to this one tilde yo tilde, Wan Dequan teased, looking like he was enjoying the fun. The imitation sound of oil and gas caused the two groups of people to laugh. Only Tong Yu's right hand, which was covering the mouse, was gripping it tighter and tighter, almost peeling off the outer shell. This Shen Huai. It's only my first day at work, and I've already made the entire work atmosphere mess. Even her state of mind was greatly affected. Whenever she saw his face in front of her eyes, Tong Yu would always be distracted involuntarily and couldn't help but pay attention to what he was doing. When I think of the ambiguous conversation between them in Lin Yiman's office, Tong Yu felt even more sad. This person is simply a disaster. What's so funny? Very funny. Tong Yu glanced at them coldly, and Wan Dequan and the others shut their mouths instantly. Her eyes fell on Shen Huai's face. She pursed her lips and looked at his face, as if she was thinking about something. After a moment, she gently opened the drawer and took out a mask. During this time, you have to wear a mask to work for me. Shen Huai took the mask and was confused. Why? I'm not sick, and it won't affect everyone's health. But your face will be affected. Tong Yu said righteously, you just made so many absurd mistakes on your first day at work, and you still say it has no impact. My group 2 is the planning group of the public relations department. It's not a place for you, Shen Huai, to go on blind dates. Cover up your face that is bringing disaster to the country and the people. Stop showing it in front of me. It's annoying. Tong Yu deliberately emphasized the word annoying at the end. This reason really made Shen Huai laugh. It's his fault that he is handsome. She couldn't resist the temptation and put the blame on him. Isn't this a typical case of an innocent man being guilty of possessing a treasure? This woman. It's really as unreasonable as ever. Jiang Xinshin gently pushed up her glasses, stared at him with her eyes wide open and whispered, Team Leader Tong, I'm afraid your Dao heart is a little unstable this time. I feel like she's having a hard time giving this reason. Qi Mingfei sighed and shook his head. I'm afraid that Yu Xiong will become a thorn in Team Leader Tong's side in the future. Wan Dequan raised his eyebrows with an expression that said, wait and see. What are you guys talking about there? Tong Yu swept over with a stern voice, didn't you hear Lin Yiman's recording? We need to cooperate with their artist management department to do a public relations for half a month. Let's think about how to keep the popularity of the newcomer surnamed Li for half a month. After all, he's the newcomer that team leader Lin values so much. You have to rush to lick him, right, Shen Huai? Tong Yu glared at Shen Huai sourly. It's okay for just one Lin Yiman. Even the people under his command are so infatuated and superficial. It's true that if the upper beam is crooked, the lower beams will be crooked too. Tong Yu thought angrily. After his rage, he ignored everyone and just lowered his head behind the computer screen. Shen Huai sighed. Forget it, what happened today was already pretty bloody. Even if a few more bloody things happen in a while, he will not be shocked at all. As for Yu Xiong, there has been no news since Shen Huai reminded her that she sent the message to the wrong group. Shen Huai guessed that Yu Xiong had not yet accepted the shocking fact of his social death, so he decided not to bother him for the time being. Shen Huai turned on his computer again and prepared to sort out his thoughts first. Make a document of the things that Lin Yiman handed over to him, and also make a preliminary implementation plan. Although his relationships with these women were complicated. But after all, it is all in the past. What's more, I am here to work, so workability is the first priority. I opened the document and just typed a few lines. A reminder popped up on the computer screen, the current battery power is less than 20%, please charge in time. Seeing this, Shen Huai suddenly felt a little uneasy. I reached into my computer bag and felt around, and my inner uneasiness instantly became reality. Finished. I left in such a hurry that I forgot to bring my power bank. Computers are not like mobile phones, where you can borrow shared power banks at any time. You must use a special charger for computers to charge them. 20% of the battery can only support 20 minutes at most. It's totally not enough. Shen Huai pondered for a moment, took out his mobile phone, and opened the small group he had just joined today. Did the company go bankrupt today? Excuse me, do you know where to buy a computer power supply nearby? I forgot to bring it. Soon, a message popped up. Jiang Xinshin, we have it in our company supermarket, and the categories are quite comprehensive. Basically all the mainstream computer power supplies on the market are available. Shen Huai was somewhat amazed. It is a big company indeed, there is even a supermarket inside the company. Shen Huai, thanks for letting me know. I'll go buy it right away. Shen Huai stood up and prepared to walk out. Suddenly he stopped and lowered his head to think for a while. Finally, Shen Huai grabbed the black mask given to him by Tong Yu on the table, put it on silently, and then walked out again. Each floor of Shining Star has an administrative floor plan of the entire building. The supermarket that Jiang Xinshan mentioned is on the first floor, occupying a full one-third of the space. It's still early evening since people are off work, so the supermarket isn't crowded. Shen Huai walked in wearing a mask. I saw a girl standing at the cashier counter. With her back to Shen Huai, she held a feather duster and stood on tiptoe, trying to dust off the top of the dust. Hello, do you have power here? The girl didn't even turn around and continued cleaning. If you have something to say, just tell me. I'm just a clerk. Shen Huai was stunned for a moment before realizing that the girl had misunderstood him. He cleared his throat and explained, sorry, I meant the kind of power supply that can be plugged in. The girl's hand stopped in mid-air. I saw a pair of beautiful eyes staring at Shen Huai with shame and anger. Rogue. Chapter 21. Shen Huai, you have no heart. Me? A hooligan? I just wanted to buy a power supply, why did I become a hooligan? Shen Huai doesn't want to take the blame. Beauty, your habit of making random accusations is not good. I didn't deduct the money randomly. It was obviously you who was rude. The girl put the feather duster heavily on the cash register, put her hands on her hips, and looked like she was not going to give in. Shen Huai was speechless as he looked at the master of Conger in front of him, who was feeling both ashamed and angry. I say, are you seriously ill? I just want to buy a power supply, a power supply. Shen Huai pointed at the computer power supply hanging on the wall and retorted directly. In an instant, a hint of panic flashed across the girl's angry eyes. The arrogant attitude of standing with his hands on his hips does not seem so justified anymore. She turned her head to look at the charger, then turned back to glare at Shen Huai. A computer charger is just a computer charger, what do you mean by power supply? How do I know if you want to harass me? Wearing a mask makes things more obvious. He doesn't look like a good person. When Shen Huai heard this, he was so angry that he almost lost his temper. Good man, you're putting the blame on someone else. You are suffering from paranoia, aren't you? You blame others for your own deafness. Shen Huai felt that his patience had almost reached its limit. All day today, I was always thinking about my ex-girlfriends, and my mind was always on edge, afraid that something might go wrong. The result was unexpected. While buying a power supply, I was labeled a rogue. It simply opened up the boundaries of his understanding of human diversity. Shen Huai decided that he must go to the temple to worship properly this weekend. Everything he experienced today was so magical that it made him wonder if he had eaten something poisonous. Seeing Shen Huai retorted to her, the girl was about to continue speaking. At this time, a cheerful and light voice suddenly appeared between the two of them. Sister Xia, I'm back. Shen Huai turned his head and saw a petite girl in a supermarket uniform standing between the two of them, looking at Shen Huai in confusion. What are you doing? Sister Xia, who is he? The little girl stared at Shen Huai's face, her eyes shining faintly, and she seemed to be very interested in Shen Huai. Shen Huai's gaze silently fell on the little girl's chest, and he couldn't help but frown. All I saw was the 3 words, Camp Collector, clearly written on her name tag. Could it be that this little girl who showed up later was the cashier in the supermarket? Who is this holodeck woman who is arguing with me? I don't know him, but is wearing a black mask in the company in broad daylight. I can tell at a glance that he's not a good person. Luo Xia said coldly. Shen Huai was completely confused and was about to retort. Unexpectedly, Luo Xia didn't give him a chance to speak at all. He immediately stuffed the feather duster back into the little girl's hands and immediately said, Since you're back, I'll go back. I haven't finished the work in my hands yet. Got it, Sister Xia, you're the best. The girl laughed joyfully. Sister Xia, you're the only one who's not arrogant. As the department leader, you're willing to take my shift. Don't say these useless things. Oh, by the way, the front desk is a bit dusty. It's time to clean it. If the boss catches you, your performance this month will be affected again. After Luo Xia finished speaking, she looked up and glared at Shen Huai fiercely again. Then he opened the front desk drawer, took out an ID card, hung it around his neck again, and walked out of the front desk with a swagger. Shen Huai's eyes were immediately attracted by the name on the work badge. Leader of Group 4 of the Administrative Department, Luo Xia. Luo Xia. Luo Xia. Luo Xia. No, wait a minute. Shen Huai felt as if he was struck by a bolt of lightning. He stood there in a daze, forgetting even to breathe. Luo Xiaya, Luo Xiaya. Memories of the dead suddenly came flooding back. Ever since Su Meng and her family went abroad, Shen Huai has been in a daze, like a walking corpse. After experiencing the bitterness of love for the first time, Shen Huai felt that every day was extremely boring. During this period, there was someone who was always silently by his side. Using the word accompany may not be accurate. Perhaps the phrase should be coincidentally combined into a book. She always appeared next to the drunk Shen Huai at very coincidental times. It was always a coincidence that I would appear with Shen Huai in the same restaurant, the same library, the same shopping mall. This person is a girl named Luo Xiaya. Like Shen Huai and Su Meng, he is a classmate. However, no matter in terms of academic performance or appearance, Luo Xiaya was ignored in the class. So throughout high school, the moment I saw Shen Huai's true face, Luo Xiaya's pupils suddenly contracted and her breathing suddenly stagnated. "It's you?" Luo Xiaya's face turned pale, she bit her lower lip tightly, and cursed angrily under her breath. "I didn't expect that." Shen Huai looked surprised, but his tone was much calmer than Luo Xiaya's. He had encountered so many weird things today that he was almost immune to them. How come the Xingyao recruitment criteria are exactly the same as his criteria for choosing a girlfriend? Otherwise, how could he recruit all his ex-girlfriends into the company? "You've become more beautiful." Shen Huai let go of Luo Xiaya's hand and greeted her with a smile. "Oh? Really? Are they prettier than the ones you dated after you broke up with me?" Luo Xiaya said in a low voice, sounding rather sour. Although Shen Huai blocked all her contact information after breaking up with her and never attended high school reunions. But there is no wall that is impenetrable. She could still catch some gossip about Shen Huai from some idle talk. Each is beautiful in her own way. Shen Huai answered truthfully. Hearing this, a hint of resentment flashed in Luo Xiaya's eyes. "Shen Huai, you really have no heart." Luo Xiaya's voice became deeper and deeper as she spoke, and she seemed to be choking with sobs. "Isn't it just that I installed a location tracking app in your phone? I did that because I love you. You disappeared from my life without a word for this very reason. Now you are praising your girlfriends for their beauty in front of me. Shen Huai, is your heart really made of iron?" Chapter 22. Are they kissing? Hearing Luo Xiaya's words, Shen Huai just felt a headache. "What does because I love you, I installed a positioning software for you mean? Is this love? This is clearly a cage. Luo Xiaya, I just told you the truth. Is your heart made of glass? It's so easy to break." Shen Huai responded impartially one by one. "We've been apart for so many years." He was too lazy to pamper her anymore. "Shen Huai, I didn't expect you to be such a person." Luo Xiaya's eyes were full of resentment. She looked around, and while no one was paying attention, she grabbed Shen Huai and walked towards the door. "What are you doing? Men and women should not touch each other." Outside the Star Glory headquarters, in front of a coffee shop. After Luo Xiaya confirmed that there was no one around, she angrily let go of Shen Huai's hand. "Shen Huai, since I met you today, you must give me an explanation today." "Explanation? What explanation do you want?" Shen Huai rubbed his wrist, which was pulled red, frowning slightly. "This Luo Xiaya is very strong. When did you become so strong? Could it be that he secretly learned some martial arts after the breakup?" Luo Xiaya folded her hands and glared at Shen Huai in judgment. "After you broke up with Su Meng, I was the one who accompanied you through the most difficult time. You often go out to get drunk, and I am the one who helps you back. When you are most bored and doubtful about life, I am always by your side. How did you repay me in the end? Not only did you unilaterally announce the breakup, but you also blocked all my contact information. I couldn't even find you at school. Shen Huai, you must tell me today, why did you leave without saying a word?" Luo Xiaya approached step by step and questioned harshly. Every word he said made Shen Huai's face even darker. "Xiaya, I thought my leaving would make you sober, but I didn't expect that after so many years, you haven't learned to reflect on yourself at all." Shen Huai's tone was indifferent, and his distant eyes fell into Luo Xiaya's eyes, which made her stunned. "Shen Huai, what do you mean? It was you who cheated on me, why do you want me to reflect on myself?" Hearing this, Shen Huai felt as if a huge rock was pressing on his chest, making him feel suffocated and anxious. "Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and then open them again. Okay, you want an explanation, right? Then I'll give you one. Shen Huai's eyes suddenly turned cold. The resentment that Xingyao had been suppressing finally exploded. Install location software on my phone and a hidden camera in my bedroom. Copy all the phone numbers in my address book and call them one by one to ask them what their relationship with me is. Secretly sewing a bug into my bag, just to listen to whether I was chatting with anyone of the opposite sex. After I fell asleep, he got up in the middle of the night to unlock my phone and check all the apps I used that day before going to sleep. The more Shen Huai spoke, the darker his tone became. Luo Xiaya, who wouldn't want to escape from a day like this? How do you know? Luo Xiaya was left speechless by Shen Huai's retort. The originally arrogant look suddenly became a little flustered. She thought that Shen Huai only knew that she had secretly installed a positioning software in his phone. There is no such thing as a wall that is impenetrable. Shen Huai looked down at Luo Xiaya. You can install a camera in my room, so why can't I? Hear this? Luo Xiaya felt like the sky was falling. Unexpectedly, everything she did had already been seen by Shen Huai. But I do this all because I love you. Luo Xiaya was a little incoherent, trying to make excuses for herself out of guilt. Love me. In the name of love, you do things that trample on other people's dignity. Shen Huai's tone was extremely cold. If this is the way you love, then if I don't leave, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? When thinking back to the time he spent with Luo Xiaya, Shen Huai could only describe it in 2 words. Asphyxia. An airtight, suffocating feeling. Luo Xiaya is the most observant girl he has ever met. Every time before I even say it, she can always guess what I'm about to say. Once or twice is okay. But she is always like this, as if she has some ability to predict the future. When they first got together, Shen Huai thought Luo Xiaya was truly his life confidant. Because she can always guess what I am going to say and what I am thinking. What's more coincidental is that she always appears cleverly when I need her the most. Luo Xiaya always attributes such things to coincidence. Until later. Shen Huai accidentally discovered the positioning software in his mobile phone. At that moment, he began to doubt his entire life. What is a lifelong confidant? What is a heaven-sent marriage? It's all bullshit. All directed and acted by Luo Xiaya herself. Shen Huai suddenly felt like he was in a huge Truman world. There was only one word in my mind: escape. Once you make up your mind, there is no turning back. Blacklist, delete, move. This outrageous and suffocating relationship was ruthlessly cut off by him. Am I so unbearable in your eyes? Luo Xiaya's eyes were filled with sadness. Can't you feel my love at all? Hearing this, Shen Huai shook his head helplessly. Xiaya, your biggest problem is that you are unwilling to admit your mistakes. No matter what others say about something you believe in, it's useless. Just like what happened just now, you misunderstood me, but you turned the tables and accused me of being a hooligan. Shen Huai sighed, and his sharp eyes softened a little. In our previous relationship, you have always been suspicious of me, so no matter what I say or do, you will judge me according to your own interpretation. This is why I ran away from you. It's simple. We are not suitable. After Shen Huai finished speaking, Luo Xiaya fell silent. She lowered her head, and her sparkling eyes seemed to have suffered great injustice. Shen Huai vaguely saw the tears flashing in his eyes. Go away, I don't want to see you again. Luo Xiaya turned around and spoke in a hoarse voice with her back to Shen Huai. People are coming and going around. From time to time, there were curious eyes looking at them. Shen Huai frowned and quickly put on his mask again. Take care, I'm leaving. Turn around in an instant. Shen Huai just felt relaxed all over. After quickly returning to the supermarket to buy a charger, Shen Huai quickly returned to the public relations department. Go into Group 2 office. Everyone looked up at him instantly, then immediately looked away and lowered their heads. Shen Huai glanced stealthily in the direction of Tong Yu. Tong Yu had the same cold face as always. While looking at the document, he typed quickly on the keyboard. Like a cold working machine. Shen Huai secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Because of Luo Xiaya, he had actually been away from his workstation for quite a while. But fortunately, Tong Yu was busy with official duties and had no time to take care of me, so I luckily escaped interrogation this time. Shen Huai plugged the charger into the computer with some relief and continued typing the document he had not finished. However, What Shen Huai didn't know was, under the star glory, there are countless leaderless small groups of people just watching the show. At this moment, the place was in an uproar and extremely lively. Candid photos taken from various angles are circulating wildly in major gossip groups. This back view, this side view, oh my god, are they kissing? Chapter 23. She must be stopped. This girl looks familiar. Isn't this Luo Xiaya, the leader of administrative group 4? But the man opposite her looks unfamiliar. This man looks like the new PR guy who just joined today. What? He is the handsome new guy who made you Xianxia crazy. Please take a photo of his face. I must see how handsome he is. I really love this height difference. The man's back looks very sexy. Help, I can't see the face clearly, but the atmosphere is really full of feeling. Fu Hai and the other three were lurking in various groups. Seeing these photos and discussions, everyone smiled knowingly. Wan Dequan selected all the photos with one click and forwarded them to the small group. Did the company go bankrupt today? And at Shen Huai at the same time. Wan Dequan, dude, the people in these photos are you, right? Shen Huai's phone vibrated several times. He picked up his phone and clicked into the group chat. The moment I saw the photo, Shen Huai almost couldn't hold back his expression. I don't know which great person secretly took a photo of Shen Huai chatting with Luo Xiaya from behind. But if you say so, just take the photo. But it is this shooting angle that makes people imagine endlessly. In the photo, Shen Huai had his back to the camera, wearing a suit, and lowered his head lazily and casually, leaning close to Luo Xiaya's face. Luo Xiaya looked at Shen Huai with tears in her eyes. Shen Huai was going crazy. This scene, as expected, should have happened when Shen Huai was questioning Luo Xiaya. As a result, the photo was taken with the beginning and the end cut off. The two people not only don't look like they are arguing, but rather look like they are flirting. It's so ambiguous that it's explosive. Shen Huai felt his temples throbbing, and his fingers flew rapidly. It's really not what you think. Qi Mingfei, we didn't think of anything. Shen Huai, where did the photo go? Fu Hai, it didn't spread very widely, probably only to the entire company. Shen Huai. Shen Huai turned around and happened to meet 4 pairs of smiling eyes. Finished. It's all over now. Shen Huai felt that even if he had mouths all over his body, he would still not be able to explain himself clearly. Wan Dequan, is team leader Luo your current girlfriend? Shen Huai, no, this photo is really not what you think. Luo Xiaya and I have nothing to do with each other. Jiang Xinshan, she actually called him by his first name. This relationship is not ordinary. Shen Huai. Fu Hai, if team leader Tong eats this melon later, she will probably explode, right? Wan Dequan, team leader Tong never likes to hang out with the group, and she is busy right now, so I don't think she'll be around for a while. Qi Mingfei, Shen Huai, you are really capable. On your first day at work, you have made the team leaders of 3 departments crazy about you. Shen Huai, you guys have really had enough. Shen Huai was so angry that his liver ached. His eyes quietly fell on Tong Yu's mobile phone screen. Tong Yu's phone screen was completely black, without any message alerts. After confirming that Tong Yu didn't know about this yet. Only then did Shen Huai feel slightly relieved. Denial now seemed impossible. We can only find ways to minimize the impact of this incident. Others don't know. But Shen Huai was very clear. If there is no reasonable explanation for this matter, I am afraid that as soon as I go to work tomorrow, I will be bombarded with questioning from my ex-girlfriends. Even if you are an old hand in the love field, you still have to save your face. When I was thinking about a solution, a new friend request suddenly popped up on WeChat. There is only a short sentence on it, I am Luo Xiaya. Shen Huai rubbed his eyebrows helplessly. Oh my goodness, they are here to hold you accountable. As expected. As soon as I passed, a series of questions came quickly from the other side. Have you seen all those photos? My colleagues are almost driving me crazy with questions. Tell me, how do you plan to solve this problem? Shen Huai thought about it and replied, what can I do? Rumors stop at their wise. Let's just leave it alone. He really couldn't think of a good solution now. Hanging. Shen Huai's words were accurately condensed into 2 words by Luo Xiaya, red and warm. Shen Huai, you are really cold-blooded. Since you don't care, I'll tell them that you were pursuing me but I rejected you. When Shen Huai saw this line of words, he felt his eyes go dark. Luo Xiaoya's logic in doing things is indeed extraordinary. Luo Xiaoya, can you calm down for a moment? Covering up rumors with rumors is the stupidest thing to do. Unexpectedly, Shen Huai's words not only failed to calm Luo Xiaoya, but instead aroused her inexplicable fighting spirit. What? Is it embarrassing for you to chase me? I used to be so good to you and protected you so carefully, but now I have ended up like this. I want to let you feel the feeling of being criticized. After sending these messages, there was no more news from Luo Xiaoya. Shen Huai's brows furrowed more and more tightly. A vague sense of uneasiness gradually grew. What the hell does Luo Xiaoya want to do? Although I have no reputation in the love field. But there are still so many deep-sea bombs hidden in the Xingyao company. Luo Xiaoya's action. If you are not careful, it will cause a chain explosion. Damn it. She must be stopped. Shen Huai picked up the phone again. I decided to give in to Luo Xiaoya first, calm her down, and then discuss the argument together. As a result, as soon as the message was sent, a red exclamation mark appeared. Luo Xiaoya actually blocked herself. Shen Huai's head was buzzing. It was as if I was transported back in time to the tense feeling I once had when I was with Luo Xiaoya. Shen Huai suddenly stood up and decided to go to the administration department in person. Anyway, it has already spread, so there is no need to hide it when meeting. Unexpectedly, as soon as Shen Huai stood up, the four people behind him also stood up. Even Tong Yu, who was sitting opposite her, nonchalantly turned off her computer and pulled up her chair. What are you doing? Shen Huai looked at their actions, confused. I didn't expect that on your first day at work. Your leaving time is even more accurate than ours. Wan Dequan winked at Shen Huai with a beaming expression. Shen Huai was stunned for a moment. I looked down at the time. Only then did I realize that it was already 6 p.m. and it was indeed time to get off work. I can finally get off the early shift today. See you the day after tomorrow. Qi Mingfei yawned, put on his computer bag, waved to everyone, and left first. The day after tomorrow. Shen Huai frowned, isn't today just Monday? You don't have to go to work tomorrow. Wan Dequan patted Shen Huai's shoulder earnestly and said, how could I be so lucky? You can get a day off as soon as you arrive. Our team has been working all night for several nights. The entire team will have a day off tomorrow. Go home and rest for a day. It's paid tilde. Jiang Xinshin pushed up her black glasses and said gratefully, this adjustment was something that team leader Tong had to apply for with great difficulty from Boss Lu. Hearing this, Shen Huai was a little surprised. I didn't expect that Tong Yu has such a humane side when treating her subordinates. Thinking of this, Shen Huai looked at Tong Yu with a little more gentleness in his eyes. Tong Yu's cheeks felt a little hot from being stared at. She turned away, still with a bad temper, and snorted arrogantly, why are you looking at me? Do you feel guilty because you got something for nothing? Then you can come to work at the company tomorrow by yourself. No one will stop you. Shen Huai withdrew his gaze. Well, what a waste of expression. The flattery that had just formed in his mind was instantly shattered by Tong Yu. She is truly a straight woman and allergic to romance. It's getting off work, and there's a lot of people. Shen Huai shuttled among the crowd. I just felt like countless pairs of eyes were staring at me. He immediately gave up the idea of finding Luo Xiaoya to communicate. I didn't expect so many people would come out at the end of the working day. If we go there rashly, I'm afraid it will cause more unnecessary misunderstandings to each other. Forget it, let us just play it safe first. Shen Huai sighed and walked out of the gate of Xingyao headquarters with a depressed look on his face. Unexpectedly, just walked to the side of the road. A black Mercedes-Benz MPV business car stopped steadily in front of Shen Huai. The car door opened, and Shen Huai was greeted by Lin Yiman's bright smile. Get in the car, I'll treat you to dinner. Chapter 24 Poor Acting. Lin Yiman? There was a flash of surprise in Shen Huai's eyes. His eyes fell on the MPV driven by Lin Yiman and he took a quick look at it. The latest model of Mercedes-Benz V260, this wheelbase is obviously the top configuration, and the landing price is at least 500,000 starting price. Shen Huai couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Lin Yiman is just a team leader in the artist management department, yet she can afford a car of this price. It is worthy of being the department in charge of the star god of wealth. Making money is as easy as eating and drinking. What are you doing standing there like an idiot? Lin Yiman smiled coquettishly, raising her head slightly. If you want to see, get in the car and I'll show you enough. Before Shen Huai could open his mouth to refuse. Beep. A shrill whistle sounded next to Shen Huai's ears. Shen Huai turned his head. I saw a black Lexus, which had quietly parked behind Lin Yiman's car. The sound just now came from this car. Shen Huai looked towards the driver's seat of the Lexus. Faintly, he saw a light blue figure swaying. Then the car door opened. A familiar figure slowly walked towards them. Lu, Director Lu. Shen Huai greeted dryly. After seeing clearly that the person coming was Lu Sheng, Shen Huai inexplicably felt guilty as if he had been caught. Lu Sheng walked over and glanced sharply at Shen Huai and Lin Yiman several times. Then, she nonchalantly pulled Shen Huai behind her and looked indifferently at Lin Yiman, who was sitting in the driver's seat. Team leader Lin, are you going to invite people from our department out for dinner? Why, Director Lu, when did you even want to control other people's private lives? This is not like your style. Lin Yiman leaned sideways against the steering wheel, supporting her cheek with one hand. The pink one-shoulder-long dress makes her chest look white and soft. At first glance, she is extremely charming and full of charm. Shen Huai's mouth was dry, alarm bells were ringing in his heart, and his whole face was full of vigilance. From the way she looked at me, to the way she was dressed. How can this be called a meal? This is clearly an attempt to eat me. This is just my first day at work and this is what happened. Lin Yiman, how hungry are you? In the past, Shen Huai never thought that men would suffer losses in such matters. But since meeting Lin Yiman, this idea has been completely changed. This person has a harmless and pure face, but behind closed doors, he is simply a perpetual motion machine that is hungry. Moreover, I always like to play some strange and weird things. All in all, it's terrible. When Shen Huai thought of those scenes that were about to happen, he shook his head in fear. This scene happened to be captured by Lu Sheng. Did team leader Lin see it? Shen Huai shook his head and said he didn't want to go. Lu Sheng's face became even darker. Director Lu, regarding the press conference, I still have some matters to discuss with Shen Huai. Why are you going to stop me from doing this? After saying that, Lin Yiman raised her beautiful eyes slightly and looked at Lu Sheng indifferently. Lu Sheng's eyes were full of vigilance. I'm sorry, team leader Lin. All the staff in Group 2 of the Public Relations Department will take a day off. We won't be working tomorrow. If you have anything to say, please talk during working hours. Hearing this, Lin Yiman chuckled, so Director Lu knows it's time to get off work. What are you doing now? With just a few words, Lin Yiman regained the right to speak. Director Lu, although Shen Huai is your subordinate, he is also a living person. He doesn't need you to be his spokesperson. After saying that, Lin Yiman's eyes passed over Lu Sheng and fell on Shen Huai behind her. Shen Huai, get in the car. Lin Yiman said lightly. This time, there was a hint of command in the frivolous and casual tone. Seeing this, Lu Sheng also turned around and stared at Shen Huai. Are you going with her, or with me? Shen Huai was sweating profusely, with words stuck in his throat, but he couldn't open his mouth. This situation. It's just like those melodramatic plots in TV dramas, choose me or her. Silence. Shen Huai glanced at it, as if he saw a life-saving straw, and raised his hand and pointed, I choose to ride my bike home by myself. No. No. Lu Lin and the other man spoke at the same time. After saying this, both of them were stunned, and then turned their heads away proudly. Shen Huai, don't forget, I am not only your leader, I am also your neighbor. If you dare to get into Lin Yiman's car, believe it or not, I will steal your house in a while. Lu Sheng leaned close to Shen Huai's ear and spoke in a deep voice, staring at Shen Huai. Lu Sheng, you. Shen Huai was speechless for a while. I hadn't originally planned to get into Lin Yiman's car. Her car is not something that ordinary people can afford. Once you get on, you can't get off. It's high speed all the way. But he didn't expect that Lu Sheng would even use such a thing to threaten him in order to prevent him from getting on the car. This Lu Sheng, doesn't he still think that he is her property? How dare you threaten so confidently? Shen Huai complained in his heart for a long time, but finally apologized to Lin Yiman. I'm sorry, team leader Lin, I just started working today, and there are many work processes that I haven't figured out yet. I won't go this time. Thank you for your kindness, team leader Lin. I'll treat you next time if there's a chance. Hearing this, Lu Xing snorted with disdain, that's more like it. Hearing this, Lin Yiman blinked her lively eyes slightly, and a hint of deep meaning flashed across her eyes as she looked at Lu Xing. But the feeling was fleeting. The next second, Lin Yiman had regained her bright smile and shrugged regretfully, well, it looks like I don't have a chance this time. But Shen Huai, remember what you just said, next time it's your turn to treat me. After Lin Yiman finished speaking, she put on her sunglasses on her right hand, smiled at Shen Huai, and walked away in a leisurely manner. Shen Huai looked at the rapidly shrinking silhouette of the Mercedes-Benz, and only then did he feel relieved. As for the remaining half, of course, it's because of the ancestor Lu Xing. Why are your eyes glued to her car? Lu Xing interrupted Shen Huai's thoughts unhappily, turned around and walked towards the Lexus. Hurry up, get in the car. Director Lu, I'm afraid it's not a good idea for me to get into your car like this. Shen Huai reminded carefully, this is at the entrance of Xingyao headquarters. When Lu Xing heard this, his hurried steps suddenly stopped and he stood still. Oh no. How could you forget about this? Originally, there had always been some minor friction between the public relations department and the artist management department. In addition, when I think back to the way Lin Yiman's eyes lit up when she saw Shen Huai today, Lu Xing was so angry that he gritted his teeth. But as the director of the public relations department, she couldn't show her anger in public no matter how angry she was. Therefore, this anger has been suppressed in my heart for a long time. What a coincidence. I didn't expect that as soon as I drove out, I would see Lin Yiman's license plate. Turning her eyes, she saw Shen Huai standing next to the passenger seat, and he looked like he was about to get in the car. Lu Xing was so angry that he opened the car door and rushed out without thinking. Now, Lu Xing, who had regained his sanity, was filled with regret. The scene just now. To put it nicely, it means caring for subordinates. To be serious, it's simply possessiveness at work. Lu Xing looked at Shen Huai with an embarrassed look on his face. Why didn't you remind me earlier? I thought you knew. Shen Huai looked innocent. Lu Xing looked at Shen Huai's aggrieved expression. Her eyes fell on their battle suit he was wearing, which she had personally chosen, and she suddenly became even angrier. Damn it. If Shen Huai was uglier, she wouldn't feel so aggrieved. But unfortunately, his appearance perfectly suits Lu Xing's aesthetic taste. That's better. He wanted to get angry but couldn't bear to throw it at Shen Huai. Time passes every second. More and more people are clocking out at the Xingyao entrance. Lu Xing's fair face turned red, he lowered his eyes to avoid the gazes of others, and walked to the front of the car pretending to be calm. Shen Huai, where is your home? It's hard to get a taxi here, how about I take you back? Lu Xing glanced at the employees who were leaving get off work and spoke in a deliberately raised voice. These words sound very polite at first, but when they come out of Lu Xing's mouth, they seem a little inexplicably funny. Looking at Lu Xing's poor acting skills, Shen Huai couldn't help but laugh. Director Lu, I can ride my own bike. Okay, bye. Without waiting for Shen Huai to finish his words, Lu Xing got into the car as if escaping and drove away in a flash.